What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto faced a child stronger than him and Kaguya combined? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. As Hinata sat in the carriage, she cried as she held onto her pregnant stomach. All she could think about was that she was finally with Naruto and they were planning a life together. After the war he searched for Hinata and confessed that he felt the same as her and finally asked her out on a proper date. She eagerly accepted and thought about nothing but the date all day, waiting patiently to be with her true love. That evening the both of them talked about how they felt. They laughed at the things that happened when they were children. That same night they shared their first kiss. Many in the village smiled at the two lovebirds as they spent almost night and day together. For months their relationship flourished to something neither one of them expected. They became soulmates. Naruto asked for Hinata hand in marriage and the Hyugas told Naruto they would give him an answer in a couple of weeks. Hinata and Naruto just knew that the elders of the clan would agree since he would be the next Hokage and that he was a war hero of their village. For 2 months the clan elders would not respond to Naruto's request. Hinata and Naruto began to hear rumors about they were not going to allow them to engage in holy matrimony. Fearing this they wed in secret and eventually told the clan elders, the elders and her father. All were furious on what was told to them and tried to get the marriage annulled. Hinata told them she was also pregnant and that she did not care if she was no longer the heiress of her clan. The elders informed Hinata that she was to wed another man from the land of stone to strengthen the bonds between the two countries and that she would have to be with the man they betrothed her to and she would have to abort her unborn child. Naruto and Hinata were outraged that her clan and father would do such a thing to the both of them. Hiyashi had asked Tsunade to put a restraining order against Naruto stating that Hinata was doing this for the good of the village. Tsunade had no choice but to comply with the order to keep Naruto away. Hiyashi had told Tsunade to perform an abortion on Hinata so she could go through with the engagement to her betrothed from the land of stone. Tsunade said that she would have no part of it and that Hinata would have to go somewhere else for the procedure to be done. Even Sakura and Shizune refused to have anything to do with aborting her and Naruto's child. Don't worry Hyuga-sama, this will be over when you terminate the pregnancy and you can wed J-Tel Shiva and you can bring a thriving economic business back to our village, said one of her clansmen. Is it customary to have so many Chunins and Jonins escort me to the Cloud Village to help me abort Naruto's child? As she stared out the window praying that her clan would change their minds. The future Hokage hasn't been seen in 2 weeks so they figured that he may try something, better safe than sorry, said the other Hyuga clansman. I don't think he will try anything, he will be the Hokage next month. Tsunade made it official 2 days ago. No one knows that Hinata and Naruto were married and expecting a child but a select few. So don't worry Hinata-sama, it will be like a new life for you, as he smiled at the heiress. Whoever said I wanted a new life? I'm happy with the one I chose and the man I planned on spending it with, as her eyes showed anger at the two Chunins. As they rode the carriage to Hinata's destination, it came to a complete stop. As the bodyguards looked at each other they knew it was an ambush. As the two Hyugas hurried to get out of the carriage they were attacked by Hinata who sealed their chakra. As Hinata got out of the carriage she saw all the bodies knock out from their injuries. As she looked around she saw a tall blonde-haired young man holding a passed-out Chunin by one hand in the air. She quickly rushed to his side crying with her arm extended waiting for him to embrace her. He quickly threw down the Chunin and ran straight toward the indigo hair goddess who stole in his heart. I knew you would come. I knew that hell or high water would never stop you from coming to get me and our child. As she cried harder than she ever had in her whole life. You're my precious wife and mother of my child. I'll die before I see them take what's precious from us in this world. As he held onto her tight. She kissed the man of her dreams and was ready to part her village and never look back. As she saw him make a hand sign his clones appeared. They quickly tied up all of the Jonins and Chunins so they could make their escape. I have everything set up. I liquidated all my assets and we have enough money to live in peace for the rest of our lives. We will move to the land of snow. The princess sold me some land high in the hills where we can go unnoticed. The scenery is beautiful beyond words Hinata, but I must ask you this, is this what you truly want? We both will be labeled missing ninjas and probably have a cash bounty put on our heads. I'll protect you with my life and make sure no one ever comes near us. But the decisions is yours to make if you want a life with me, as Naruto looked at his wife hoping she would come with him. My life was always to be by your side, nothing changed and nothing will ever change that. You are my future, we are Uzumaki's as of this day, as Hinata placed a kiss on his lips to let him know that fate itself couldn't rip them apart. As they headed north to their destination, Naruto carried her on his back to make sure that her journey would not be too strenuous for her and the baby. As they traveled for about 15 minutes, Naruto saw 4 familiar faces ahead of the road. Well, what do you know? He was that dumb to attack our fellow ninjas. Naruto, I suggest you hand over Hinata and come back to the village peacefully. Tsunade may have mercy and forgive your little transgression for attacking the Chunins and Jonins of the village. As Sakura put on her gloves hoping it wouldn't come down to an actual fight. Shouldn't you be enjoying being on your knees with your precious Uchiha, Sakura? I'm only going to say this once, let me pass and I won't kill all 4 of you. Naruto pulled out his kunai and waited for their answer. Shit, he's serious. The look in his eyes there filled with love for Hinata and his unborn child. He's willing to take on all of us so they can be together, thought Shikamaru. Are you crazy, Naruto? You're supposed to be the Hokage in a couple of weeks and you pull this shit? Yelled Ino, who pulled out her kunai to match his. Yeah, Naruto, it's been your dream since you could talk, it's what you worked so hard for to achieve, said Choji as he got into his battle stance. It means less than nothing if Hinata isn't by my side to share my dream. Last chance, move or be moved, the choice is yours. He put Hinata behind him and got ready for a fight among friends. You were always the fool, Naruto. You never thought things through and always paid the price later on. You brought this on yourself, as Sakura sounded ice cold toward her friend with even more venom than she ever sprouted at him in life. With the quickness, Naruto had a Rasengan in the palm of his hand and rushed towards Sakura in a blink of an eye. Before she could react, he planted a full Rasengan in her chest, knocking her into the ground, making a deep crater. Shit, I was hoping to talk him down and have him give Hinata back peacefully, but he isn't going to listen. More than that, he used a deadly attack on Sakura. Did he mean to kill her? Thought Shikamaru as he stretched his shadow, but Naruto dodged it completely. As Sakura lay in a crater, he quickly rushed Choji to take him down. Choji used his family bloodline and expanded his hands and arms to catch Naruto in his grasp. As he clamped his hands together, Naruto slipped through his grasp and used his kunai to cut a deep slash in Choji's collarbone, making him scream in pain as a stream of blood spurted from his shoulder. As Choji fell down, he instinctively tried to cover his wound with his hands. Naruto quickly grabbed another kunai and stabbed Choji in the other shoulder, making him scream in more pain. Choji! As both Ino and Shikamaru yelled at the top of their lungs. Ino quickly rushed and grabbed Hinata around her neck and told Naruto to stop his murderous rage and to drop his kunai. I never thought that you of all people would use a pregnant friend to save your own life, as Naruto walked nonchalantly toward Ino. Wait, why is he walking slowly toward her? He moved with blinding speed on everyone else but not Ino. Shit. Ino, quickly get away from Hinata. It's a trap. That's not Hinata but an exploding shadow clone. As Shikamaru yelled at the top of his lungs. Naruto quickly made a hand sign and Hinata exploded with such a tremendous force, almost crippling the blonde woman. Naruto, it doesn't have to be this way, stand down or I will be forced to kill you. Shikamaru braced himself for the fight of his life. Shikamaru pulled out a set of kunais. He waited for his blonde friend to make a move. Naruto knew Shikamaru's capabilities better than anyone else, that's why he saved him for last. If anyone could defeat him, it would be the laziest ninja in the Konoha who could do it. As Naruto moved at a blinding speed, Shikamaru swung his kunais hoping to back off the blonde speedster. As their kunais smashed together, hurting both of their hands, Naruto tried to place a kick in the sternum of his friend. Shikamaru quickly evaded and tried to ram his kunai into Naruto's leg. Naruto quickly dodged his attack and jumped back to escape his blade. As Naruto jumped back, he threw a smoke bomb directly at his adversary. Shikamaru jumped back and noticed that Naruto and a shadow clone was charging toward him and both had Rasengans in the palm of their hands. Shikamaru quickly extended his shadows and caught both of them and destroyed one. Shikamaru noticed that he caught the real Naruto and held him. What are you planning, Naruto? You should have known that my shadows would have detained you, so why did you try a frontal attack? As Shikamaru looked at the captured Naruto. You're just way better than me, that's all. Shikamaru, this will end badly for you, you know that, right? Why won't you let me be with the woman I love? I'm only going to say this once, let me go and I won't have to hurt you, old friend. Naruto looked at Shikamaru with intensity that unnerved the lazy Jonin. You're caught, so how are you going to kill me, old friend? Naruto smiled as he was trapped in Shikamaru's shadow possession. Hey Shikamaru, called a shadow clone from the darkness as he threw a kunai at him. Shikamaru ducked the kunai, breaking the jutsu. The clone threw another kunai toward Naruto. With his speed, got behind Shikamaru and placed his arm around his neck and caught the kunai coming towards Shikamaru's head and stabbed Shikamaru on the right side of his body. Shikamaru looked behind him, stunned that his closest friend tried to take his life. Naruto dropped Shikamaru on the ground. As he turned around, he saw a battered Sakura barely able to stand with a dislocated arm. She pulled out a kunai that shook uncontrollably in her hand. You bastard, you tried to kill us all. I'll kill you for what you did to our comrades, to me. You were our friend and you betrayed us and your village for a failure of a Hyuga. Sakura was ready to attack her former teammate and bring him down hard. You are my friend, that is why I didn't kill you. Instead of making empty threats you can't keep, you should worry more about our comrades. I'm going to give you a message to take back to the village, the Hyugas, the village elders and the Hokage, that if they send anyone after us I will kill them all. I won't negotiate, I won't hesitate, I will do exactly what I said I would do and send them back in small pieces that won't even fit in a casket. As Naruto looked at Sakura, she saw Hinata come out of hiding to stand next to her husband. We will not let the village politics keep us apart any longer. I stand next to him now and forever. Please Sakura, make sure that the village and its council know that we will do what we must to stay together, as she held onto her husband's hand. You're both dead. Once you leave the fire country they will never stop coming for the both of you. Sakura looked at the both of them as she planned to attack one more time. Do you want your comrades to die? If you fight me, who will be able to heal the three of them? Both Shikamaru and Choji will bleed to death and I really don't know how bad Ino's injuries are. So I suggest you let us pass and tend to their needs. Naruto pulled out a kunai and pointed it at his former teammate face and waited for her answer. Sakura knew that Naruto was right. She let them pass and went to attend to her fallen friends. As she watched them run away, she knew that Naruto would kill to protect his wife and unborn child. As she healed Shikamaru, some of the Jonins that were left at the carriage a mile down came and assisted Sakura. I see why they wanted him to be the Hokage. He defeated us without even trying. I think he was trying to make a point. No matter how many we send against him or how strong, he can defeat us. As the Hyuga Chunin went and helped patch up Choji while Sakura worked on Shikamaru. For the first time in her life she felt fear from Naruto and pity for those who would try to bring him or Hinata back to the Konoha. It meant death by a man in love that would protect his family at all cost. As the Chunins rushed Choji, Ino and Shikamaru inside the hospital, many were shocked to see three Jonins injured severely. As Tsunade rushed to see her injured ninjas, she saw a battered and bruised Sakura. She rushed over to her former apprentice to find out what happened. Sakura, did Naruto do this? Asked a very curious Tsunade. Yes, and he didn't hold back. The Chunins radioed us ahead so we could stop him from taking Hinata. We tried to stop him but he was more powerful than I thought possible. As Sakura held her swollen, dislocated arm. Shit, I thought Naruto would have accepted Hinata's clan duties and his as well. I should have known better. She was his first love and vice versa. I was against the Hyuga clan aborting Hinata's baby, but I couldn't get involved in clan affairs. I tried to talk to them about the situation at hand but they took it pretty hard. Naruto left and threatened the whole Hyuga clan and told Hiashi if he goes through with trying to annul their marriage he would put him in a body cast. Hiashi and his clan filed an injunction on Naruto from coming onto Hyuga property. Naruto made a threat against the whole council that if they go through with annulling his marriage that it would be held to pay. The council knew that Naruto held great respect from the 5 great countries. They asked me to step down voluntarily to appease him and make him think about the village's welfare. I guess that plan didn't work, it only pissed him off more, as Tsunade took a look at Sakura's arm and set it back into place and healed it at the same time for her. Tsunade, their injuries aren't life-threatening, he made sure not to hit any major arteries or major organs. They will make a full recovery, but their pride will be shot for a while. As Shizune looked at the both of them. Call all the clans and village elders for an emergency meeting. We have to report this to everyone that we have two missing nins by the name of Naruto and Hinata Uzumaki, as Tsunade walked toward the door. Wait, what are you going to do? As Shizune looked at Tsunade. As Tsunade turned towards Sakura and Shizune, she had tears in her eyes, something Shizune rarely seen from the Hokage. What the Hokage must do, was her only reply. As Naruto carried Hinata on his back to the nearest village known as Karijin, the vilest place in the north, she was still fast asleep on his back. Naruto knew that his wife had a strenuous night and the attack on them by their friends really did a number on her. As Naruto walked down the dark dirt road, he was approached by three well-armed thieves. As they blocked his way, they looked at Hinata. "Let us help you with that fine-looking piece you got on your back," said one of the tall thieves with two swords on his back. "Yeah, she's too much woman for you to handle alone. Give her to us and we will not have to slice both of you up. If you don't, we kill you and still have fun with your woman," said the other thief as he pulled out two knives. "Shush, quiet, if you wake my wife there will be hell to pay," as he positioned Hinata further up his back. "This idiot must be crazy? Do you really think you can take on the dark angels of Karijin and live?" said the other thief who pulled out a small sword. As they rushed at Naruto, he stood still and never moved, when suddenly two kunais struck the thief with the small sword and also struck the thief with the knives in the chest, killing them instantly. "You didn't even move. How did you take them out?" yelled the thief with the two swords. "Shadow clones of mine are hiding in the darkness. Now are you going to move so I can head to my destination?" asked Naruto. "I don't care if you are a ninja, you're dead," as he pulled out both of his swords from his back and charged at Naruto while he still had a sleeping Hinata on his back. Naruto sidestepped at the last possible moment as his adversary came with a vertical slice to kill him and Hinata. Naruto with the swiftness pulled out his kunai and stuck his foe in the neck. As the thief dropped his weapons, he looked directly at Naruto as he gurgled on his own blood. "Not possible. What type ninja are you? Wait, can't be you. Why? Come here," as his body hit the ground with a thump. Naruto pulled the kunais out of his victims' bodies so there would be no evidence of a ninja weapons or that a ninja killed them. He knew that this part of the village despised ninjas and would attack him for being one. Naruto decided to keep heading to one of his old contacts' hideout that helped him during the war. She was a high-ranking healer and forger. She was considered the best when ninjas wanted to disappear without a trace. Naruto had set up an appointment to meet with her 2 weeks ago so Hinata and he could get away from their former village. As Naruto walked into the village, he searched for Harumi's hideout. As he walked down the bad part of the village, he recognized the house. As he approached the hideout, he gave the secret knock and the code word. As the door opened, two large 6'5", 380-pound bodyguards looked at Naruto and the small pregnant woman on his back sleep. "She's been waiting for you. Head to the back. Your room is ready so she can rest. Harumi will be in there shortly to see you," said the large bodyguard. Naruto headed to the back room with his wife and said nothing as he gave a deathly presence about himself. He left the giant bodyguards quivering with uneasiness. "Damn, did you see his eyes? He wasn't even scared of us even a little. Watch what you say, he may not be as big as us but his aura is death-like frightening." As the large bodyguard watched him go to the back and close the door. As Naruto laid down Hinata, he gently stroked her hair and kissed her on her forehead. She was the only one that could turn a ferocious Naruto into a gentle lamb. "I love you with all my heart, Hinata Uzumaki," as he whispered those words in her ear as she smiled in her sleep. As there was a knock on the door, a small elderly-looking woman came through the door. As she watched the strongest ninja in recorded history being as gentle as a lamb to his wife, she couldn't help but smile. "You were right, she is beautiful. I see why you would risk everything to be by her side, but I must ask you, are you certain that you want to make these changes in your life? Once you do this, there is no going back," as Harumi saw her friend leave his wife's side. "You known me for years, what do you think? I was afraid you were going to say that. What do you need me to do?" asked Harumi. "Can you remove these whisker marks off my face? Plus, do you have that special dye that I asked you to get?" as Naruto sat in the chair where Hinata was laying next to the bed. "I can remove them, but it will be awfully painful, and I got the 2 special dyes that you asked for. Here, let me put you to sleep so that you won't be in that much pain. Usually I only remove tattoos or scars off the body. I never removed a birthmark before, especially on the face," as she approached Naruto as he sat on the chair. No, I want to be conscious when you perform this operation, as Naruto braced himself. As she looked at Naruto, she told him to lean his head back. As she focused her chakra into her hands, she placed them onto Naruto's face. Naruto was in excruciating pain as he muffled his screams with all of his strength so he wouldn't wake Hinata. Harumi couldn't believe that Naruto could absorb such unbearable pain. As she removed her hands off his face, he breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at Naruto and gave him a mirror to show her artistic healing talents. I always wondered what I would look like without these whisker birthmarks. Now I kind of miss them, as he examined his face with great care. Do you think your wife will like the change in your appearance? I don't know, but I hope so. Could you please leave me? I'm going to use the dye you bought me. As Naruto staggered out of the chair. By the way, you're a war hero just as I am. What made you move to the most dangerous place in all the North? Asked Naruto. Well, I came back and there were many changes in my country. The first were new politicians that wanted the old out. Since I'm the old, I had to go. Since I was a great forger, I put my talents to helping people like you and some unsavory ones as well. If I stayed in the good part of the village, I wouldn't be able to make money since the good part of the village wouldn't need my services, as she smiled at Naruto. I guess you're right, as he looked out the window to see a group of men beating on one man that was unarmed. Okay, tomorrow I'll have your forged ids so you and your wife can make it to the land of spring. Formerly the land of snow. When she wakes up, make sure she use that dye so you can leave in the morning. I'm pretty sure it's going to take them about 4 days to issue a missing nin report for your capture, as Harumi headed to the door to leave. As Naruto went into the bathroom, he quickly placed the dye in his hair and went back to the room with Hinata. As he sat down in the chair, he formed a shadow clone to watch the door. He smiled at his wife and quietly fell asleep in the chair. As the elders of the village and all of the head clansmen of the village wondered what the emergency meeting was about, they all quickly took their seats so the meeting could begin. As Tsunade walked through the meeting hall, all eyes were on her as she took the podium to explain about Hinata and Naruto. As she went over every detail about what Naruto had done, many were stunned that their future Hokage had done those things their present Hokage was telling them. What shocked them more was that she asked that Naruto be pardoned and that he and Hinata stay married. As there were many people in the auditorium discussing it with each other, a couple of elders and esteemed clansmen wanted to take the podium to discuss what they were told. How much income will the village lose if we allow them to stay married? Asked a member of the Sarutobi clan. Over 460 million, as Hiyashi stood up and gave the answer. That seemed to rile up the crowd into a fury on the income they would lose. What about the treaty that was signed last year? Will they still accept the terms of the agreement? Asked a clan member of the Aburame. They may try to use this to break our agreement, as Hiyashi beat Tsunade to the punch before she could answer the question. There was so much noise in the room that order couldn't be restored for 5 minutes. Everyone knew that the treaty would let past crimes from both villages be pardoned and there would no reprisal for revenge or blood feud. Many started to look at the elders for answers, so when Kaharu stood up, all eyes were locked onto her. There is only one thing to do. Hinata is going into her 3rd month right now. We need to catch her within the week and return her here to the village where Tsunade will perform the surgical procedure. As Kaharu looked in her direction. You mean abortion? Call it what it is, yelled Tsunade. Many elders and clan leaders thought that Naruto should stay married to Hinata, while most thought the opposite. Naruto will never let Hinata or their baby be harmed for politics. He's not just going to roll over for anyone, said the clan elder of the Nara. That's why if we don't get Hinata back within the week, I suggest we send an assassin to kill Naruto if he doesn't comply with our demands. If we succeed on killing Naruto, then we won't have to worry about anything. The leaf will prosper like never before, as Kaharu addressed every one of the elders' plans. There is no one who would even think about taking on Naruto, especially if they find out who their target is. You're talking about a boy that defeated Pain at age 16 and 7 months down the line he defeated both the Uchihas in the war. Who are you planning on sending after Naruto? Asked Shuza. 2 Sharingan users, Kakashi Hitaki and Sasuke Uchiha. They will bring back the body of Naruto Uzumaki and return the heiress to the village, as Kaharu finished her argument for the retrieval of the missing nins. Wait, you can't do this. Naruto is a war hero, a living legend of the village. This is ludicrous. Only I can put Naruto in the bingo book, as Tsunade yelled at the top of her voice. We know of your personal feelings for Naruto, so this must be done by a unanimous vote among the clan's head and elders. You can vote as well Tsunade if you like. There are 18 of us, so the majority decides if he stays married or we return Hinata back to the village with the bounty on his head. As Kaharu told everyone to prepare to vote. As each was given a white piece of paper to vote with, they were asked to either vote for Naruto and Hinata to stay married or to label them as missing nins, and they would send out the nin hunters for them. As everyone had a look of disgust and nervousness about deciding the two young lovers' fate, they went and voted in private so no one could see what decision they chosen. As they all voted, they took their seats back in the stadium. As Tsunade and Kaharu came and tallied the vote, it was against Naruto and Hinata being married 10-8. Tsunade could barely control her emotion as the verdict was read. As one of the Akamichi clansmen stood up, all eyes were on him. We make this one request: since Naruto is a war hero of this village, we ask that he be approached in a diplomatic way. That he agrees to our terms, then he can return unharmed and be pardoned for his desertion of the village. Everyone here knows that what he's going through is a burden none of us would want to bear, said the large Akamichi Jonin. Many agreed on what he said and decided to make it official. Kaharu nodded in agreement and left the meeting hall with Tsunade and Homura. As they made it to her office, there stood Kakashi and Sasuke waiting patiently for their return. As they waited for their brief on their mission, they could tell something terrible was about to happen. As Homura brushed against Sasuke, he felt something go into his pocket but didn't say anything and decided to wait till after the meeting to see what was put in his pocket. As Tsunade gave the two of them the mission to bring back Naruto and Hinata, they were told to bring them back to the village by force and tied up if they had to. Kaharu asked that they take along Sakura so Naruto would be less violent and a little more understanding. As Kakashi and Sasuke left the office, both went home to prepare for their assignment. As Sasuke went in his pocket to see what the old man put there, he read the note that told him to meet in secrecy at Training Ground 2. As he headed toward that destination, he wondered just what this secrecy was all about. As he arrived, he saw Sakura sitting on a tree stump looking battered and bruised. "Sasuke, what are you doing here? I was told by the elders to meet them here, what about you?" As she looked at Sasuke and still got butterflies when he looked her way. "Same here," as his words was as cold as ever to the pink-haired Kunoichi. "We called you here because we have a secondary mission for the both of you," as Homura stepped out of the dark. "What's that?" asked Sasuke as he stared at the two with hatred in his eyes. "Simple: kill Naruto and bring back the Hyuga heiress unharmed. That is your mission, Sasuke," said Homura. "Sakura, your mission is to abort the baby right there on the spot. Make sure that the demon's wife survives the ordeal," said Kaharu. "What? I can't do that to Hinata, she's a friend of mine and so is Naruto. I can't be part of this evil scheme. Find another patsy to do your evil biting." As Sakura started to walk away, then she noticed that Sasuke stayed behind. "Sasuke, you can't be seriously thinking about going along with their plans? You bastard. It was Naruto that risked all to save you and now you want to betray him like this." "Shut up, woman," yelled Homura. "When we were taking Hinata to have her baby aborted, you didn't see anything wrong with it, but now since you have to perform the procedure, you all of a sudden grew a moral conscience. You are a kunoichi, simple and plain, your village needs you." Sasuke, incapacitate Kakashi long enough for her to perform the procedure. Make sure that Naruto dies. We need for the village to prosper for years to come. If they find out we tried to kill a war hero and the son of the fourth Hokage, it would destroy our reputation for centuries. You two have your mission assignments. Failure is not an option. As Homura turned and walked away from the two. "I refuse to do this," as Sakura looked at Sasuke. "You don't have a choice, we were giving a mission and we must accept it. We're ninjas and we follow the rules just like my brother done when he was part of this village," as Sasuke started to walk away from Sakura. "You remember what Kakashi-sensei said? Those who break the rules are trash. Those who abandon their friends are worse than trash." Sasuke looked at Sakura and turned away to head home to prepare for his mission. Sakura couldn't believe that after all that Naruto did for Sasuke, he was going to betray him once again. When Sasuke returned home, she rushed to be by his side and gave him everything, even her virginity, willingly. As they were together for about a month, she noticed that he became distant and cold toward her. When she mentioned marriage to him, Sasuke's exact words were, "I'm happy by myself, so why would I complicate my life for you?" Those words destroyed her that day, but she continued to be supportive and still continued to be the woman he needed in his life with no questions asked. Now she had a dilemma: save Naruto or stand with Sasuke. Even though Naruto attacked her to get Hinata to safety, Sakura had no grudge against the attack at all. She knew that she would do the same to keep Sasuke safe from all harm. She knew that Naruto didn't put any hatred or killing intent in it, or otherwise she would be dead. As she walked home to get her supplies for the mission, she prepared for her journey to either bring back her friend or kill him. As Hinata woke up, she saw a strange red-haired man lying next to her in a chair. She quickly jumped up and was ready to strike him until she noticed his features. It was Naruto. She quickly woke him up to ask what he did to himself because she noticed the whiskers were gone too. As she lightly woke him up, he smiled at his wife at that being the first person he saw in the morning. "Naruto, you look like another person. Why did you remove your whiskers and why the red hair, and you cut your long blonde hair off too?" asked a very shocked Hinata. "Yeah, the way I look, someone would definitely recognize me, so I took off the whiskers, and for the hair, well, my mom had red hair, so I thought why not. So I changed my hair color to that of my mother's," as Naruto stretched and placed a kiss on his wife's lips. "Speaking of which, I'm afraid you're going to have to make a change also. How do you feel like becoming a blonde?" as Naruto smiled at Hinata. Hinata looked over and saw a hair dye bottle with some Suna clothes next to it and looked at Naruto with a smile. "Sure, I heard blondes have more fun," as she grabbed all the items and went inside the bathroom to freshen up and assume her new identity. As Harumi knocked on the door, Naruto let her in. "Here is your new identity. I tried to give you names that suit the both of you. Here are the tickets for the carriage that leave in about 3 hours, and here is the ticket for the boat ride to get you to the land of spring, formerly the land of snow, to safety. I suggest you tell your wife to make haste so you can go to town and eat before your long journey. Oh, and by the way, there is a rumor going around that 3 high-ranking gang members were killed last night. I hope that wasn't you, Naruto? If it was you, you need to be more inconspicuous about the things you do, and please tell your wife the same thing, or otherwise all of this will be a waste of time," as Harumi walked out of the room. Naruto looked at the ids and smiled. It seemed he was relatively amused by the names she came up with. As an hour passed, Hinata came out of the room with a towel around her head. As she removed it, her hair was as golden as Naruto's used to be, and she had a smile like she was going to enjoy being a blonde. Naruto loved the way she looked, but he preferred her as a dark-haired woman better, but he had to admit she looked like a sultry temptress with that blonde hair. As they both changed into their Suna clothes, Naruto noticed that Hinata was looking sad. He sat next to her and looked her in the eyes. "Hinata, I'm so sorry. I thought that I would succeed on being a great husband to you, but I failed. You, an heiress of the Hyugas that's almost like royalty, is here in Karajan, the worst village in history, filled with drugs, murderers, rapists and prostitution, sitting next to a failure of a husband. When we leave here, I swear to you we will only have happy days to come," as his eyes went directly down to the floor. Hinata took her hand and raised his head. "You're my dream, Naruto. I would rather die than have some other man touch my body and call me his wife. If you didn't show up, I was going to make an escape myself, so you don't ever have to worry about me not being by your side. I'm Hinata Uzumaki, or did you forget?" as she placed an passionate kiss on his lips. As Naruto returned the kiss, he remembered the ids and handed Hinata hers. "So I'm called Hitomi, pupil of the eye. Eiji, protector or reign of peace. Hitomi Eiji? Who gave me this name?" asked Hinata. "I'm called Noriyuki, law and happiness, Eiji, and it was Harumi. Guess she felt like giving us some hidden message in our names," as he smiled at Hinata. As they prepared to leave, Hinata went and thanked Harumi for everything she did for them. Harumi nodded and told them to be very careful about traveling around this part of the country. She told them that once they make it to the land of spring, disappear and live life like a civilian. As they said their goodbyes, Naruto and Hinata headed to the outskirt of the village to catch the next carriage to the shipping docks. As they walked to their destination, they noticed that the buildings were run down or close to being condemned, with many families living in them. They noticed that most gangs stood on the corners but didn't bother anyone, but was looking out for addicts to make some money or searching for someone who might try and take their product away by force from them. Hinata remembered reading about the living condition in Karajan village. They said that most children died by the time they hit 11 years old. As she watched some children playing in a hole filled with water, she saw the sadness in their faces as they tried their best to have fun. Hinata quickly placed her hand on her stomach and shed a tear for the children of the village. Remember Hinata, we have to be unseen by everyone, so try to blend in with the locals, as Naruto continued to hold her hand. As she nodded in agreement, as they approached their destination, Naruto took Hinata to a small outdoor restaurant so she wouldn't be hungry on the trip, since they still had a little time before they departed the village. As Naruto left to go get some supplies, he told Hinata he would be right back and to order some food to take on the carriage for their journey. As Hinata sat down and ate her food, she watched as everyone seemed to be in despair over how their village had become. As she heard some shouting taking place behind her, she turned to see what the commotion was about. She saw a large group of men smacking a young child around. He looked to be around 8 years old and he was screaming at the men to forgive him. "Please, I'm sorry, don't kill me, I just wanted to feed my baby sister. She's starving, that's the only reason I tried to pick your pocket. I swear I'll never come around you again," begged the little boy. "Little sister As he saw who the little boy was talking about, he smiled at the little girl. "We can sell her and make a nice profit. Go get her and I'll take care of this thieving child," as he pulled out his sword. As he came down with his sword, he was hoping to cut the boy in two when suddenly his wrist was stopped by Hinata, who gave him a death glare. "Oh, what do we have here, a heroine trying to protect some street trash? It seems you're too beautiful to be here from this village. But that's okay, since you got involved. Do you intend to pay for his mistakes?" asked the large man with a patch over his eye. "How much did he try to steal from you, and I'll pay. Just leave the children alone," as Hinata released his wrist. $4, said the man with the patch. "You were going to kill him over $4? Fine, as soon as my husband gets back I will give you double the money, just go away and leave them in peace," said Hinata. "No, I change my mind. I want what's between your legs. Only then will we call it even," as he licked his lips at Hinata. "I suggest you take the money and be on your way," as Hinata walked over and picked up the little girl from one of the outlaws and walked over to the little boy and handed him his sister. "You got guts, but I like a woman that puts up a fight anyway. Men, grab that bitch and bring her and the little girl back to my base," as he turned and looked at her. Hinata didn't activate her Byakugan, but she counted 8 gang members that tried to surround her. She quickly attacked the one in front of her by concentrating her chakra into her hands and crushed his rib cage with tremendous force, causing him to spit up blood and leaving him incapacitated on the ground. She quickly roundhouse kicked 3 gang members that charged, knocking them to the ground and knocked out cold. As 2 rushed her from her right and her left, she quickly ducked and forced chakra into her hands and punched both her foes in their balls, making them scream in agony as they thought she literally burst their most prized possession on their body. As the other 3 looked in horror on what she did, they took off running away from her. "Well, the little bitch knows how to fight. Well, since you want to be the heroine so bad in this story, I guess it's time for you to meet the villain." As he pulled out a long sword and pointed it at Hinata, Hinata remained calm and waited for him to make a move. As soon as he was going to attack, Naruto placed a dull knife around his neck. "I know you're not trying to hurt my wife, are you?" said Naruto as he said it in a cool and collective manner. The man with the patch dropped his sword. Naruto looked at all the carnage his small pregnant wife done in a short amount of time he was gone. He looked at Hinata, who nonchalantly shrugged her shoulders up as to say, "What? Well, we have quite the predicament here. Should I kill you or should I let you go?" as Naruto pressed the dull knife against his wife attacker. "Let me go, let me go, let me go," as he kept repeating the statement over and over. "Fine, I'll let you go, but if you come back with reinforcements I'm going to kill you, simple and plain," as Naruto cut him with the dull knife on the neck. As he felt the pain and the stream of blood coming slowly down his neck, he felt Naruto let him go and received a kick in the ass by Naruto. Hinata quickly grabbed the children as all the onlookers stared in amazement on what just took place. They never known anyone who would risk their lives for some street urchins. They started to smile, then they cheered. Someone took a moral stand, something that hadn't been done in decades in the village. As Naruto looked at the time, he saw they only had another 45 minutes to go before they left the village. As they walked back to the restaurant, many patted Hinata and Naruto on the back for saving the children. As they sat down at the restaurant, Hinata told the children to order themselves something to eat. As they looked at Naruto and Hinata, they couldn't believe they were this nice. Naruto decided to order a large feast for the children while he gave his wife an enthusiastic look. She quickly explained the situation. As Naruto heard all of the details, he agreed that she did the right thing, but now they had unnecessary attention thrown their way. Thanks, kind lady and mister. I thought they were going to kill me and sell my sister. I owe you and my sister our lives. I swear one day I will pay you back. As the little boy ate the food with such speed that it impressed Naruto on how he didn't drop one crumb. What's your names, kid? Asked Naruto. I'm Makoto and the little blonde girl over there is Akina. Don't ask if we have a last name because we don't. Our parents were killed when I was 4 and Akina was 2. I heard that our last name might be Sarasachi, but it's just a rumor. You're planning on leaving this village in a little while, right? Be careful of the 2 men you're riding with. They work for Old One Eye Patch. They have this racket: if you have a lot of money they wait till you're asleep and kill you. I used to run errands for the guy and I heard him bragging about how they killed a young couple like you. When you leave with him, ride on the top of the carriage with him because he will tell you it's safer inside. He will lock the door and use that sword of his and stab you through the carriage. As the young boy stopped eating and gave a serious look. I see. As Naruto looked at Hinata. Thanks for the tip. Will you two be alright from here? I'm taking Akina out of this village tonight. We are on Old One Eye's radar and that's not a good thing. Do you mind if we take the scraps since we will have a long travel ahead? Said Makoto. Wait, you're going to try and walk to another village? Just how old are you? Asked Hinata. I'm 7 and Akina is 5 and we don't have a choice. If I stay I'm dead. Out there at least I have a fighting chance of survival. As he placed the scraps in a handkerchief. Naruto knew that look in Hinata's eyes. She was seriously thinking about taking the children with them. Although it crossed his mind, the children could be in more danger if they were to stay with them. Naruto remembered how it used to be when he was an orphan and how hard it was to find some food now and then. He saw Hinata open her mouth and knew what was coming out. Would you children like to come with us? As Hinata looked at the two. I appreciate the offer but we don't even know your names, said Makoto. I'm Hitomi and this is Noriyuki and we would love for you to join us, as Hinata gave a grand smile at the two. I want to go with her, Makoto. She saved us and she has a trusting face. Can we please go with them? Pleaded Akina as she gave her puppy dog eyes. Makoto reluctantly gave in. He thanked them and told them that he would help them no matter what. Naruto paid the bill and all 4 headed to where the carriage was set to take them to the docks. As Naruto watched Hinata carry the little girl, he couldn't notice that being a motherly figure came natural to her. He wondered if he would have that fatherly figure look and wisdom once their child was born. As Hinata put down the little girl, she whispered in Naruto's ear. What if he says is true about the drivers of the carriage? Do you think we should throw them off the carriage and drive it ourselves? Asked Hinata. No, I have a plan and if they so much as make a move against any of us they'll receive the shock of their lives. As Naruto placed a perfect kiss on his wife's lips. It had been roughly 30 hours and Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke couldn't find any leads on the whereabouts of Naruto and Hinata. As they looked at the map once again, they looked at all of the surrounding villages that seemed like a perfect place to hide. None could agree on one of the 4 villages they thought their fugitives fled to. Do you think Naruto and Hinata fled to the village where Gaara stays? I mean, it's the perfect place to ask for political asylum if you ask me, as Sakura looked at her former sensei and the love of her life. She wondered if she could talk Sasuke out of following the orders they were given by the elders of the village. The longer they searched for the 2 deserters, the more she realized that Naruto was doing the right thing by rescuing Hinata. I want us to go to the village of Copper. This is the perfect spot for Naruto to head to the Suna village. I'm pretty sure that the Land of Wind Daimyo will accept Naruto with no questions asked. He has at least 39-hour head start, so I suggest we get moving, said Kakashi as he looked at his former students. He knew that by sending 2 of Naruto's former teammates that it would make him sloppy and hesitant to attack them. A perfect tactic to bring down a powerful shinobi like Naruto. No, we're going to the village of Jakeno. I believe that he's not going to the Suna village but to the home of the Wind Daimyo. I believe that if he asks him personally for asylum the Wind Daimyo will sanction all Konoha ninjas to keep a powerhouse like Naruto in his country. Just think, Naruto and Gaara together will make the Sand Village prosper in mission contracts alone. As Sasuke tried to take control of the leadership of the mission. He knew that Kakashi wouldn't back down from him but he was unwilling to follow a false Uchiha. Sakura knew now that the mission was going to go downhill if she didn't keep both of their attitudes in check. She quickly grabbed the map and looked at the other 2 villages to make a compromise on the operation of their mission. As she looked at the map she saw the other two villages. She questioned the two on the other villages. Both stopped arguing to tell Sakura about Karajan village. They wouldn't go that way. Karajan village is the most dangerous place in all of the North Suna. It's also the most dangerous place for ninjas to go. It's like a death sentence for a shinobi. Naruto would never risk Hinata's safety just to get away. He knows that her safety is his greatest concern. As Sasuke started to get annoyed by both of his former teammates. I have to agree with the traitor on this one. Our best bet is to find them is in the village of Copper. I need the both of you to get your asses into gear to bring back our comrade safely to the village. As Kakashi grabbed the map and his supplies to get started back on his mission. You go your way and I'll go mine. Come on Sakura, we have a mission to complete. Let the false eye bastard go looking in the wrong direction. I know the dumb ass blonde better than anyone. As Sasuke spoke so loud it kind of scared Sakura. We were sent here to be a team, we can't separate because of a disagreement. Now let's all get back to the mission at hand. As Sakura was almost pleading for cooperation from the both of them. I said, now Sakura, I'm not going to repeat myself again. Get your shit and back me up. As Sasuke anger began to rise. Kakashi removed his head protector as he was ready to activate his Sharingan to stop Sasuke if he tried to harm Sakura. Kakashi-sensei, I'm going to go with Sasuke. He knows that, let's go right now. Yelled Sasuke so loud that Sakura jumped from the volume of the malice in his voice. Sakura, you don't have to leave with this traitorous scum. He's not your boyfriend and he's definitely not your husband. As Kakashi prepared himself to do battle with his former pupil. Sakura quickly got in between the two so there would be no blood spilled between them. I'm going to leave with him, I'll keep in contact with you. As she got her supplies in motion for Sasuke to walk ahead. Countdown. TWENTY 7 hours. As the carriage drove all four to the shipping docks on the outside of Karajan village. Naruto sat on top of the carriage with the drivers as he watched them carefully to make sure they wouldn't try anything underhanded. The two drivers heard about him and his small but dangerous wife. They knew they had orders to kill all of them, but they were going to wait until they fell asleep. As both children sat on the opposite side of Hinata inside the carriage, they smiled at the woman who saved their lives. Would you like me to tell the future of your baby? Asked Akina as she touched her stomach. This shocked Hinata because she wasn't really showing, and with the clothes she had on you couldn't tell at all. Even though this little girl was only 5 going on 6, she showed remarkable intelligence for someone her age. Akina, be quiet, shouted Makoto. What's the matter Makoto? She's just passing the time while we're in the carriage. She can't really tell the future, as she looked at him with curiosity. She can, and I'm sorry, it's just that if someone finds out about her gifts they would try and sell her or use her gifts for their own evil purpose. As Makoto fear about his sister ability was told. She very precise on her fortune telling, but it may not be what you want to hear. She once told a lady her fortune and it wasn't a good one. She called my sister a freak. An abomination, and she tried to beat Akina for telling her something terrible about her future, as he finished explaining it to Hinata. You really believe she can tell the future? She can, but don't be mad if it isn't something you want to hear. Akina, do your thing. As Makoto looked at his little sister as she prepared to tell Hinata the future of her unborn child. As Akina placed her hands on Hinata's pregnant belly, Akina's eyes went completely white and her features changed from a smiling child to that of a face that showed a grim facial feature that unnerved Hinata. The eldest child will have his father's determination to never give up combined with the gentleness of his mother's heart. He will be the product of their love and sacrifice that will unite the shinobi world in peace started by his father mission, a cautious tale to this child. He will be burdened with the hate and the sins of his father's best friend he deems as a brother. This child can turn the hatred of this clan with the love of another if he can overcome the darkness within their spirit. He will unite a grieving village that still have the will of fire. As Akina's eyes went back to normal and gave a solemn look on what she said. Hinata was shocked on hearing that revelation of a prophecy given. This little girl knew that she and Naruto were ninjas, and she knew of the will of fire philosophy given to the children of the village. She also stated that he was the eldest, which meant she was going to have more children, which kind of excited her. She knew that Akina really was special and that she would tell Akina to keep her ability a secret until she got old enough to protect herself. As the drivers pulled over the carriage to give the horses time enough to relax, eat and drink, The two little children eagerly got out of the carriage to stretch their legs and to relieve their bodily fluids from the long ride. As Naruto asked Hinata to come over to him because he had something for her, she eagerly came to see what he had in his hands. "Here Hinata, I need you to put these in your eyes," as he placed a box in her hand. "What is it?" asked a very curious Hinata as she opened the box to reveal its contents. "There's something new, they're called contact lenses. I got you a shade of light green so your true beautiful eye color won't be recognized," as he looked at his wife. "So this is the supplies you went to get, how does it work?" asked Hinata as she looked at the lightly colored glass lens. "You put them in your eyes and they change the color of your pupils. This new product that's really designed for beauty products for geishas and actresses," as Naruto helped Hinata put them in. As he looked at his wife he saw that it made her look like someone new. As he smiled at his wife, he couldn't wait to live a life of a commoner to wake up every day to this beautiful creature that stood in front of him. "So what do you think about the two drivers? Do you think they will try something once we rest for the night?" asked an inquisitive Hinata. "Don't worry about it. I'll take care of our chauffeurs if they so much as look the wrong way at us. But for now we will act like everything is alright. It will be dark soon so make sure the kids eaten and you too. You're now eating for two," as Naruto came and placed his hand on Hinata's stomach and smiled at his stunning-looking wife. She could do nothing but blush. 22 years old and Naruto still could make her feel like she was 12 when he was around. "Do you think that they sent hunter ninjas after us already?" asked Hinata as she placed her hands on top of Naruto's as he continued to hold her stomach. "I doubt it. They would have to go through too much paperwork and vote. Like Harumi said, it would at least take 2 to 3 days and we will be in the land of spring by that time," as he tried to relax his wife's mind from unneeded stress. As they all sat down to eat, Naruto noticed that Hinata was staring at Akina. Naruto just figured that she wanted a little girl, that's why she was staring at her. Countdown. 23 hours. As Sakura and Sasuke had arrived in the village Jakeno, they had searched the entire village and asked the ninjas of that village had they seen a blonde man and a dark-haired pregnant woman that might have come to their village? All the ninjas and everyone from that village all replied that they hadn't seen visitors matching their descriptions. As they both became frustrated over not having any clues to the two deserters, they decided to eat at local restaurant and head to the next village Naruto and Hinata might had stop at. As they sat there they heard a loud man yelling about what he saw yesterday in the village of Karajan. As Sakura and Sasuke saw the crowd gather to hear the conversation, they waited on him to continue his story. "I tell you, this little kid was getting pummeled to death by the gangsters of the village. All he was trying to do was to feed his little sister. As they beat him for only $4, the leader of the gang was going to try and sell his sister. As I watched him pull out his sword to kill the little boy, it was stopped by a blonde-hair woman." "Wait, you said a blonde? Was this blonde a visitor in the village?" as Sasuke got up from the table to question the man. "Quiet, I'm telling you what happened. She may have been a visitor to the village, but she was a Suna citizen because of the clothes she was wearing. Now let me finish up. So she stops the gangsters from killing the boy and kidnapping the girl by defeating all 10 with the best taijutsu I ever seen in my life. Then her husband shows up with red flaming hair and puts the knife to old Eyepatch neck and had the toughest gangster you ever met begging for his life in front of the whole village. I swear the world needs more like those two," as the villager imitated the move the young blonde woman performed on her adversaries. Sasuke quickly grabbed the villager by his collar and slammed him against the wall. "The red-head man, did he have whiskers on his face?" as Sasuke placed his forearm against the villager's throat. "No. He didn't have any whiskers marks at all on his face." "Were they ninjas?" as Sasuke put more pressure on his neck. "No, they were just plain ordinary villagers that did the right thing and saved some children," as the villager struggled to be released by Sasuke. "Sasuke, release him, you're hurting him bad. They don't match the description, so let him go," as Sakura tried to loosen his grip around the man's neck. "Remove your hand or I'll break it," as Sakura backed up in fear from Sasuke's statement. "Now tell me about the woman," as he looked at the villager. She was beautiful beyond compare. She had the face of an angel, but what really stood out were those eyes of hers. They were some of the most lavender color eyes I ever seen in my life. They were hypnotic and they were filled with compassion, as the villager was now ready to pass out from the pressure around his throat. "We're heading to Karajan village to get the information we need to find Naruto. It's a 4-hour trip and I don't think he's heading to the Suna. When we get to Karijin, we need to find a forger that may have gave him a false identification to cross the borders or set up a new life somewhere else. As Sasuke rushed to find transportation to take them to their destination. Sakura looked at Sasuke and couldn't believe that after everything Naruto did for him he was willing to kill him. Naruto risked the wrath of every clansman, elder and the village itself to help his friend. It was ironic the one who would do everything to keep him safe was being betrayed by the one doing everything in his power to kill him. Sakura made a decision on what to do. A teammate would die by her hands when the time came. Countdown, 19 hours. As the carriage was parked for the night so the horses could rest, Naruto and Hinata with the children went to the river to wash up and bring back fresh water for the horses and the drivers. As they all tidy up their sleeping arrangements, they all fell asleep instantly, which surprised the drivers. "Here's our chance. We will kill the husband first. I'll jump on his body and cover his mouth and you stab him in his head. Then we will kill his wife, then those snot-nosed gutter trash kids." As the tall driver handed him the long knife and the other driver nodded in agreement. As they tiptoed quietly toward Naruto, their hearts were racing from being caught by the sleeping redhead. As the tall driver crept over Naruto, he pounced on him and covered his mouth. The driver with the knife quickly came down with the knife with all of his strength, stabbing Naruto in the head. Boom! As an explosion was heard from miles around. Naruto disguised his exploding shadow clone as him as he pretended to be asleep. The tall bandit that held the Naruto clone down died instantly from the blast. "My hands, they're gone. My hands." As the second driver looked and saw that the explosion took his hands off with a large portion of his wrists. "Nice scam you got. Take the passengers to the middle of nowhere and kill them and take their valuables. I don't even feel bad for the both of you. I suggest you start running to the nearest village before you bleed to death, and by the way, I'm keeping the horse and the carriage." As Naruto pointed for the driver to get to running. As the driver staggered to his feet, he headed to the nearest village in the middle of the night, hoping he wouldn't die on this deserted road. As Naruto drove a half-mile down, he saw Hinata with the kids by a fire. He pulled the carriage to them and got out. "Hey, where's Jackie and Sho?" asked Makoto. They let us have the carriage and decided to walk back to Karijin, as Naruto took a seat next to his wife. "I heard the explosion, so they were going to kill us when they got the chance," as Hinata whispered to him and handed him something to eat. "Yeah, but one lived. I told him to get to walking if he wanted to live," as Naruto ate his food with great delight. As they all finished eating their meals, they all decided to get a good night's sleep since they would head out early in the morning. As Harumi sat in her chair reading a book, she heard fighting at the entrance of her door. As she walked out, she saw her bodyguards lying across the floor, what looked like a puncture hole in their chest. Although they were still breathing, they were in no shape to stand. "Harumi Nakajima, I can't believe an old bag of bones like you is still alive and kicking. When I asked the villagers who's the best forger in this mud hole of a village and they said your name, I knew Naruto was here," as Sasuke walked up to her and stared. "Naruto? I haven't seen him since the war, and what does a traitorous scum like you want with someone like him anyway?" As Harumi looked back at him in his eyes with no fear in her heart. "Enough talk, you shriveled up piece of shit. Where's the blonde and his whore going to? Don't make me get physical on you. I'm pretty sure your old decrepit body can't handle what I'm going to do to you," as Sasuke grabbed her around her neck. Sasuke let her go. "She's a bloody war hero, for crying out loud. You can't hurt her. If people find out what you did, there will be repercussions from every nation calling for your head. She was instrumental in the defeat of Madara. Let her go and let's just search the house," as Sakura pleaded with Sasuke to withdraw his hand from around her neck. "We don't have time. Last time to tell us," as Sasuke charged up his Chidori and tried to intimidate Harumi with it. "I lived a long time and I never betrayed a client or my village. Naruto should have killed you when you two fought 4 years ago. His nindo and his compassion for you proved to be his downfall. You're nothing but unadulterated hate that can never know love or compassion from another human being. You're nothing but a monster, a beast without a soul. The wrong Uchiha died to leave its future to you. Itachi should have killed you and chosen someone worthy to carry on the name of Uchiha instead of a characterless monster," as Harumi spat directly in his eyes. "You little dried up little bitch, how dare you spit in the last Uchiha face with such disrespect? Talk now or you die," as Sasuke slowly placed his Chidori on Harumi's chest and let out a burst of electricity that made her shake violently. "Fuck you. You weak Uchiha bastard, as Harumi lifted her middle finger up and smiled. Where is he? As he struck her again with his Chidori. He's found love. What do you have? Nothing. She willing to die for him and you. No one cares if you as so much die right in front of them, as she laughed in his face. Shut up. Shut up. Tell me where he's at, you old ghoul. What village is he going to? Why are you protecting him? He's not even from your village, as he struck her 5 times with Chidori, hoping to break her resistance. He's something special, something you'll never be, and something you'll never understand. Naruto brings peace and understanding. Something a hate monger like can never do. Understand people with compassion, as Harumi passed out from her injuries. Sasuke knew she would be dead within the hour. He slammed her down on the floor and walked away in disgust from the old lady who hurt him with her words. Sakura quickly ran to Harumi and tried to heal her. All Sakura could do was cry. Harumi was her friend that she met in the war. Both both became close to her and formed a bond with the little old lady. Sakura, stop, let me die in peace knowing I helped Naruto. Promise me that you'll help Naruto as well. Naruto needs Hinata in his life. If Hinata's hurt, then Naruto is hurting. Their destiny is unfulfilled and must be completed together for the future of all villages. As Harumi bled from the mouth and passed away with a smile on her face. Why, Sasuke? Why did you have to kill her? As Sakura closed Harumi's eyes. She had a choice. All she had to do was answer the damn questions. She sealed her own fate the moment she refused to tell me, as Sasuke walked toward the door. Come on, we're going to see the gangster Hinata defeated. Maybe he knows where they're headed. As Sakura looked at her one-time friend and ally, she took some covers off the couch and covered her body up. As they left her home, they both questioned the villagers and drug dealers and whores where to find this old One-Eye Patch. Many were reluctant to talk to them because they knew of old One-Eye's reputation and they were not going to risk their life by spilling his information. As they approached a whore on the street, Sasuke asked her of the whereabouts of old One-Eye. For a price she gave them his whereabouts. As they gave her the money, they went to his base of operations. As they made it to old One-Eye's base, they approached the 2 guards at the door and asked to see their boss. As the guards looked at the 2, they told them to get lost and shoved Sasuke. This enraged the Uchiha, who pulled out his sword and removed both of the guards' hands. As the guards screamed in agony, it attracted the attention of their comrades. As they approached the 2 ninjas, they saw their comrades' hands on the ground. They all pulled out their weapons and prepared to attack their intruders. Stop! Yelled their leader as he looked at Sasuke and Sakura. Good, I don't have time to kill all of you. I just have a couple of questions, answer them and I'll be on my way, as Sasuke sheathed his sword. This must be important for ninjas to come to a village that kills shinobis on sight? Ask your stupid questions and get the hell of my property before I send my men to kill you, as old One-Eye unsheathed his sword. The blonde and the redhead man that you fought, do you know where they went? Asked Sasuke as he looked at the criminal leader. They'll be dead within a couple of hours. My men are going to kill them when they fall asleep. So you can pick up the bodies if you like, they're heading to the shipping docks to go across seas. So your time was wasted on coming here, as he turned back to go into his base. No, your men are already dead, the ones you're chasing are ninjas. Give me 2 horses and I'll kill the one who embarrassed you and bring back his body so you can show the village that you don't take no shit from no one, as Sasuke smiled at their leader. As he thought about it, he knew that his cutthroat bandits were no match for the 2 he faced earlier. Alright, you got yourself a deal, but betray me and I'll use all the money I have to put a bounty on you if you steal my horses and break your word, as old One-Eye motioned for his men to bring out some horses for their guest. As he gave them the directions on the map to where to go, Sasuke nodded and got on the horse and headed toward Naruto and Hinata's position. As they left carriage and village, they knew that they had some serious catching up to do. Countdown. 3 hours. As Sakura and Sasuke woke up from their sleep, they let the horses rest and drink since they rode them hard all night. As they got on their horses to pursue Naruto and Hinata, they quickly rode the trail old One-Eye gave them. As they rode the horses for an hour, they came across a corpse that had no hands. As Sakura jumped down from her horse, she quickly examined the body. It seems his hands were blown off by an explosion. He bled to death, maybe from a paper tag bomb? There are no more marks on his body consisting of a battle, but it looked like he walked a long distance. See the blood droplets trail from where he just fell down at. As Sakura pointed to the blood trail on the road. It seems we're on the right track. Naruto is heading to the land of spring. He's probably already at the docks waiting to board a passenger ship to blend in. If he takes a private boat, the owners will recognize him because of so little people on the boat. With the large boat he will blend in with no problem. Naruto, you really have become smart, haven't you? As he looked at Sakura. Sasuke was surprised that he gave Naruto a compliment for being intelligent. Come on Sakura, I know a small tour boat salesman that's not far away who can take us directly to the port where Naruto is going. Naruto, once I kill you, I will rebuild the Uchiha clan and we will be the ninjas the shinobi world will fear. As Sasuke smiled on finally being able to kill the only one who could stand in his way. As Naruto and Hinata looked on the horizon of the land of spring, both saw their future filled with peace in a foreign land with their unborn child. Hinata leaned backwards and braced herself in Naruto's arms as she held her stomach. She reached back and kissed Naruto on his cheek and whispered in his ear. Isn't this the most beautiful place you ever seen? We're free, Naruto, from unjust politics and the way of the ninja life. We finally get to be together as husband and wife. I'll always remember this view, it's where our happiness all began. As Hinata leaned even further back to feel Naruto's warm embrace. Yeah, the first time I came here I was helping Yukie for a mission. It turns out she was running from her past to escape execution and injustice done to her by her uncle's betrayal. It's funny because I'm returning to her land to escape the same thing and now she's helping me, as Naruto chuckled on how fate was truly ironic. As Naruto and Hinata just stared at the view of the ocean, Akina approached and asked the two lovebirds did they have anything that she could snack on because she was very hungry. This angered her older brother as he heard her asking for food. Akina, leave them alone and stop begging. We'll find some food on our own. We will never be street pigeons looking for crumbs from others. We can't rely on the kindness of strangers all of our lives. As Makoto grabbed his sister by the hand and tried to walk off. Hinata quickly stopped the duo from leaving. Makoto, she's hungry and so am I, why don't you two join me for a quick bite to eat? Don't worry, the food is on me. As Hinata smiled seemed to radiate so much kindness and warmth that Makoto had no choice but to smile and accept. Naruto couldn't believe that Hinata was such a natural with children. He wished that when he was younger he could have met someone with even half the kindness of his wife. As he watched Hinata play with the children while they ate, he knew that his child would be blessed to have a mother like Hinata. As the two children finished eating, Naruto noticed that Makoto had a wrinkled-up comic book in his back pocket. Naruto decided to be polite and ask him what he was reading. This is a story about Naruto Uzumaki of the Leaf Village. I don't know how to read, but the action scene seems really awesome. I bet if Naruto came to Karijin village he could bring peace just like that, as Makoto snapped his fingers. Naruto was shocked. He remembered that he gave one of Jiraiya's old publishing company permission to write a book about him, but he never imagined it would be a comic book. As he read the comic book it made him seem unbeatable and he knew that wasn't the case. It was plenty of times he came home with knife wounds, burns, jutsu marks and sword slashes over his body. He knew that the publishers had to embellish the truth on him, but he knew if they told the truth they wouldn't be able to sell any books at all. One day I'm going to return to Karijin and make it peaceful. I'm going to surpass Naruto and bring peace just like he did in the war. As Makoto reached back for his comic. He never let that book out of his sight. He fought 3 boys over it who tried to take it from him. He wants to be the next protector of peace, as Akina smiled at Naruto. So what, if Naruto was at the village when they attacked us he would have defeated them all in a blink of an eye. As he got mad at his sister for telling everyone about how he loves that book. Tell you what Makoto, I'll teach how to read and then you'll know what they're saying in the book. Would you like that? As Hinata motioned for the book. Makoto handed her the book so he would finally be able to understand what the book was talking about. All he ever did was look at the pictures. Now the story would truly come alive for him. As he listened to Hinata read the story he didn't blink or let anything around him break his hypnotic trance as Hinata read the book to him. As she read he followed her hands and tried to remember the words in the book. As he looked at Hinata, he wondered if he could find someone like her when he gets older. As Sasuke and Sakura was on the small boat with Sasuke's acquaintance traveling at top speed to beat Naruto to the docks, Sasuke noticed a small boat following them but really didn't pay that much attention to it because it seemed to be heading to the island as well. Sakura, you must put all of your emotions to the side and terminate Hinata's pregnancy at all cost. She isn't a friend now, she's a contract that must be fulfilled by us. I'll take care of Naruto personally. When he's distracted, strike her stomach with one of your medical jutsu. Use that chakra scalpel of yours, it's fast, effective and clean and we won't have to worry about that much blood once she miscarriage. As Sasuke pulled out his sword to sharpen it and clean it at the same time. As Sakura looked in his eyes, she saw Sasuke's bloodlust start to rise. Although he showed no emotion, a simple smirk of his lips was all it took for Sakura to realize that he enjoyed the hunt for the killing. As she saw that they were close to the island, she prepared in her mind to do what needed to be done. Hey Sasuke, I can't go near that pier to let you off, it's for the big body boats, but I can let you off at the trading dock. If your prey is coming from that boat like you say, then they will need to pass through the gap in the valley to get to the palace, said the boat driver as he prayed that Sasuke would be in a good mood and keep his sword away from his neck. Fine, but you better hurry because my sword is craving for blood, and if I miss Naruto, yours will suffice its lust for now. As he turned away, annoyed by the talking of the boat driver. I hope someone kills this ruthless bastard. I thought his village would have him executed and we would be free from such malevolence from this world. He's nothing but hatred personified. The only thing I can come up with is that the village wants to return the Uchiha's bloodline back to the village, making them stronger once again. As the boat driver thought to himself. We made it and we beat the ship your friends were on by 20 minutes. See Sasuke, I always deliver in a tight spot. As the boat driver was relieved. As Sasuke and Sakura approached the docks, they prepared themselves to take on the two deserters of the village. As Naruto and Hinata arrived on the docks, they were only an hour away from Yukie's palace, where their money and land was waiting on them by Naruto's longtime friend. As they passed the security details, they headed toward their destination when they noticed that Makoto and Akina were going in the opposite direction. Hey, aren't you coming with us? Asked Hinata as she looked scared for the two little children. I think it's better if we split up now. We like you, we really do, but what if you decided we're nothing but trash or some Save the Kids project? I can't put Akina through that. We're better off by ourselves. As Makoto grabbed his little sister's hand. No, I want to stay with her. Our destiny is intertwined with theirs. They're going to need us and it's you that's scared we will be abandoned again. As Akina tried to break away from her brother's grasp. Naruto approached the two little kids and took a knee. Makoto, why don't you come with us, and if you don't like it you can leave. While you're with us I can show you some jutsus that can make you become more powerful than Naruto if you like. You do know how to focus chakra, right? As Naruto rose off his knee. Yeah, but it's not very good. I take that back, it's horrible. Can you really teach me how to fight, or is this some ploy to make me come with you? As Makoto looked at him with a serious expression. I give you my word, as Naruto held out his hand as in agreement to the little boy's terms. Makoto shook his hand, he couldn't believe his luck. For years people spat on him, beat him and stole from him. Then he met two strangers that made his life a little bit more bearable with their generosity and understanding. As all four began to walk toward the palace, Naruto told them all about the history of the country. He told them it was on gigantic island that inhabited millions of people all over the land. He described many wildlife, birds and animals to keep them from being bored. As they came to the valley to reach Yukie's palace, Naruto made sure to be very careful so that Hinata and the children wouldn't be hurt. As they made it down the rugged peaks, each one did not want to crack their head going down. As they finally made it to the flat part of the land, they thought it would be smooth sailing. There they are, and walking with some small children. Naruto, you're still the fool. Bringing street trash like that with you because they remind you of yourself. Typical simple-minded buffoon, and you're too sentimental. As Sasuke pulled out his sword to confront his one-time best friend. Sasuke, remember Tsunade said be diplomatic first. We have to follow her orders, she's the Hokage. As Sakura grabbed his shoulder to remind him of their true mission. Do as I say, my word is law when it comes to you. And the next time you touch me without permission you will be punished. As Sasuke backed her up with a killer intent and glare. As Naruto and Hinata made it to an open field, they saw their comrades from the village blocking their way. Hinata, get the children and yourself to safety. It seems they sent my former teammates to dispose of me. Makoto, Akina, it seems I have to reacquaint myself with my old friends. Don't worry Makoto, I'll still train you, it's just I will be busy showing my friends I meant what I said if someone come after me and my wife. As Naruto pulled out two kunais. I'm not leaving you Naruto, if my husband is in danger we face it together. Kids go on past them, their objective is me and Naruto, they wouldn't stoop to hurt children. As Hinata motioned them to leave them. As the children looked at Sasuke and Sakura, they ran as fast as they could from the two who were there to kill their friends. Sakura, I'll take care of Naruto. Kill that bastard that's growing in that whore's stomach. It's time you showed that you're worthy of being with a true Uchiha. Do this and I will consider you for a potential mate for the rebuilding of my clan. Ha, that's a laugh. Why don't you tell her the truth, Sasuke? Forget it, I'll tell her. Your precious Sasuke-kun petitioned my little sister as a candidate to help rebuild his clan. He wanted someone with a strong Kekkei Genkai to ensure that his offsprings would carry on his genes. My father and sister refused his failed marriage proposal, but they tried to offer me. Since I was no longer the heir, they toyed with the idea until they found out me and Naruto were dating. Since the Hyuga clan wanted more power and Naruto was definitely going to be the next Hokage, they refused that request as well. You see, Sakura, he had no plans on ever making you his wife. Last I heard, he was trying to get Ino to help revive his clan. She would be the next choice, seeing she has a bloodline trait and you don't, as Hinata laid the truth out for Sakura. To tell you the truth, I was really hoping to impregnate you with my seeds of greatness. You have the body that a man craves and I would have knocked you up for at least 10 times. Then I saw you with Naruto and I definitely don't want a whore who would stoop that low, as Sasuke chuckled to himself. I'd rather be his whore than to ever be called your wife. I guess that extra large ego of yours makes up for a small. As Hinata threw her jacket on the ground and pulled out a pair of kunais to be by her husband's side when they attack. As all eyes locked onto Hinata from that statement that came out her mouth, Naruto began to laugh at Sasuke's expense. Whatever, Sakura, kill her baby but make sure she lives. You can be as rough as you like with her, just make sure you don't go too far, said Sasuke as he prepared himself for battle. If you think I'm letting that pink-haired bitch lay a finger on my wife, then you're wrong. Dead wrong. As Naruto made a Rasengan that spiraled in his hand with such intensity that it lit up and sparked. The wind from the Rasengan was so strong that it actually caused a dust storm that made Sasuke and Sakura cover their eyes. Naruto used his speed and darted straight for his two friends turned enemies. As he came crashing down trying to kill Sasuke, the two of them evaded a death strike that sent chills up the Uchiha's spine. Sasuke blocked Naruto's path back to Hinata. He quickly yelled for Sakura to take out Hinata. Sakura knew that this was the only time she could talk to Hinata and persuade her to help take out Sasuke. Hinata thought it would be better to get some distance so her and Naruto wouldn't be in each other's way. As she ran as fast as she could from the three of them, she hoped that Sakura would follow her. As Sakura chased after Hinata, she kept calling her name. As Hinata came to a complete stop, she looked at Sakura. As Sakura approached Hinata, she was stopped by two kunais flying directly toward her head. Hinata, wait, I'm here to help you, screams Sakura to make Hinata stop fighting. What, to an early grave? I heard what Sasuke said to you, and if you think you're coming 2 feet near me, then I'm going to stop your heart with my gentle fist, simple and plain. As Hinata got into her family taijutsu stance. Hinata, I'm your friend, I come, as she was cut off by Hinata yelling. Friend, you dare speak those words out of your mouth? When they took me to have my pregnancy terminated, you rode with them to make sure it gets done. Is that what a friend does in your book? When Naruto nearly died by the hands of that bastard Sasuke, did you cry for Naruto, or did cry because Sasuke left you without so much as a care in the world? When pain attacked the village, did you risk your life to save Naruto? I'll even ask you this, Sakura. You knew I loved Naruto, did you tell him? No, why? Because you wanted someone to always want you just in case your dear Sasuke-kun didn't come back to you, and when he did, how long did it take for you to end up in his bed and to be his personal UAL relief? Not once did you mention to Naruto that I always loved him, but when we finally got together I was scared he was going to leave me for you. I was so afraid to say stay away from her. Then something eye-opening happened. He saw the real you, hateful toward him, abusive toward him, and the more he saw your true colors, he realized that you were not his friend. How does it truly feel to know the one guy in the village that cared for you unconditionally, you chose to throw him away for a true traitor? They said you were smart, so why did you do something so foolish as to forsake love? As Hinata's rant became so unbearable to Sakura, she was literally crying on the inside and out. Sakura decided to push all those hateful words out of her head and try to convince Hinata she was sincere. As she took a step toward Hinata, Hinata planted a well-placed Juken strike in the center of her chest, causing her to gasp for air. She quickly threw a punch to back up Hinata and her deadly attacks. As Sakura saw that she was in Hinata's field of vision, she jumped back as fast as she could. The last thing she needed was to be hit with her 8 trigrams 32 palms technique. Sakura knew now that Hinata dumped her shyness to protect her husband and their child. Sakura was looking at a whole new Hinata that had no qualms about taking her life if need be. Sakura decided to use her strength to take down her friend. As she charged up her chakra in her hand, she leapt in the air and came crashing down next to Hinata, causing a massive quake and leaving a crater where Hinata stood. As Hinata dodged Sakura's explosive attack, she knew that a well-placed punch of that magnitude struck in her pregnant stomach would surely kill the baby and maybe her along with it. As Hinata once again got back into her stance, she waited patiently for Sakura to make another move. As Sakura looked at Hinata, she knew that she had no choice but to knock her out and hopefully be able to assist Naruto with Sasuke. Sakura wished now that she would have spoken up against Sasuke earlier when they blocked their path. She prayed that Naruto would give her the benefit of the doubt and believe her. So tell me, Sakura, are you finally jealous of me? I have a husband that gave up his dream of becoming Hokage and made me his dream, as Hinata struck Sakura in the shoulder as she was distracted by Hinata's taunt. What? As Sakura jumped back from Hinata's brutal words and strikes. How does it feel to be the last on the list of mates of your precious Sasuke-kun? Is he still your knight in shining armor? As Hinata struck Sakura once again, this time in her thigh. I have to block out her taunts, it's starting to affect my performance, and on top of that she became an excellent kunoichi. Who would have thought that this shy, stuttering failure could give me such a hard time, thought Sakura. Sakura with a burst of speed tried to connect a punch to Hinata's head. Hinata evaded but felt the wind pass by her face. You want to know something interesting? My husband knows this, but did you know that Sasuke approached me when we were 13 for a date? Sakura shook her head. No. Yes he did, and I flat out refuse him. I wasn't going to be some fangirl or some stupid bimbo to be used at his pleasure. I think the only reason he wanted to go out with me is because he saw that I had a crush on Naruto, and as a friend of yours I sent Sasuke your way. I guess we all know how that turned out. He ignored you and didn't give you a second glance, as Hinata struck Sakura 3 more times in her chest with her Jukin-style technique. Shut up, you pale-eyed bitch, as Sakura lost her temper completely. Sakura with blinding speed caught Hinata in the jaw, backing her up. Sakura threw another punch that landed directly in the bridge of Hinata's nose, making her bleed through her nostrils. As Sakura plays a nice roundhouse kick to the face of Hinata, making her fall to the ground. Sakura started breathing hard, trying to catch what little air she could in her lungs. As she looked at Hinata stand up, she saw that Hinata was actually smiling and had 2 kunais in her hand. What's so damn funny? As Sakura seen that Hinata was tougher than she looked. I've been meaning to try this technique out, and I'm glad that it's against the one whom always was hurting the love of my life. As she raised her kunais over her head, the kunais glowed a dark blue as they surged with Hinata's chakra. She's using Osamu's technique he used for his trench knives. What is she up to? You're now in my range, Sakura, time to feel my technique. 8 trigrams 32 kunai strike, as Hinata prepared her onslaught. Shit, Hinata's going all out. I have to get away from her field of vision, as Sakura thought on how to escape from the pregnant Hyuga. Before she could even move, Sakura felt a slash go across her chest. 4, 8, 16, 32, as Hinata called out the strike numbers of her attacks to take down her friend-turned-enemy. Sakura felt every slash go across her body. She tried to block the surgical attacks, but they were too precise and Hinata's hand speed was greater than hers. Finally, Sakura succumbed to Hinata's skillful attack and fell on the ground, bleeding from all over her body. Hinata, I was trying to help you. Sasuke was given a mission to kill Naruto. I didn't want him to kill Naruto, I was trying. L was trying to help you. As Sakura looked at the failure of the Hyuga clan that defeated her. You still don't get it, Sakura? We don't need your help. If you want to help us, leave us alone. Let us have a life together. Tell our former village that. Now I'm going to help my husband get rid of that no-good son of a bitch. Who knew my hormones would make me this angry? As she walked to help her husband take on the last Uchiha. Wait, Sasuke is stronger now. Maybe, stronger than Naruto. If you get involved, you will both die and the baby as well, as Sakura got to one knee and pleaded with Hinata to not get in the way. All this time and you still don't know what it means to be part of a team. If Sasuke is stronger, that only makes me want to get involved more. When I'm weak, Naruto makes me strong. If Naruto is weak, I will make him strong. We're a married team of two. This is true love. Sakura remember what it looks like, as Hinata left Sakura and went to help her husband. Even though Sakura was defeated, she actually saw what true love really looks like. They protect and love each other, something that Sasuke never reciprocated. As she stayed and healed her injuries, she still planned on helping the two no matter what. As Sasuke blocked Naruto from getting to Hinata, he told Sakura to take care of Hinata. As Hinata looked at Sakura and Sasuke, she quickly ran away from all three. I guess the failure is smarter than she looks, she running away to save her own life and the baby, as Sasuke heard Sakura screaming for Hinata to stop running. I see that your evil has no bounds. Move Sasuke, because if Sakura hurts my wife, I'll make sure that I hit you with a Rasengan so hard there won't be anything left to identify your body when I'm finished. You'll be a big red puddle of goo on the ground. As Naruto took his stance to take down Sasuke. HHHHMMPHH. Bravery. It seems everyone you know seems to have it by the pounds, even that old bag of bones Harumi. Well, she did until I killed her, as Sasuke chuckled as he looked at Naruto with his Sharingan activated. You lie, as Naruto let his guard down to look at Sasuke. I must say that for a 200-year-old ghoul she withstood a repeated punch from my Chidori but still wouldn't tell me where you were. It took that gangster that wanted you and that pale-eyed wife of yours dead for me to find you, as Sasuke rushed Naruto with his sword to cut his one-time friend down. Naruto was still reeling from the statement that Harumi was killed by Sasuke. Naruto's fighting spirit had come crashing down once he realized that Harumi protected him so they could escape. He gathered up his emotions and attacked Sasuke but kept his anger in check. As their weapons clashed back and forth, each strike ignited sparks from their weapon as both combatants used every bit of their skills to take each other down. Why Sasuke? Why did you betray me once again? As Naruto got behind Sasuke and swung his kunai at his neck. As Sasuke dodged Naruto's ferocious attack, he looked at Naruto. It's you who has betrayed me. When you defeated me, you won my respect. I returned to the village on my own free will, thinking we will change the Konoha into our image. We would get rid of the old fools who refuse to change with the times and get rid of the corrupt elders who think that a shinobi life isn't worth shit. We could have made the village like it was supposed to be made, Uchiha and Senju together. But when I returned you could have been Hokage, but no, you wanted more time to improve before you took the post. Then instead of being the ruler of the elders and the clans, all you became was a yes man. You didn't refuse the elders, the Hokage or the clan heads. You were their loyal servant, obedient without question. I waited patiently for you to make our village into our image of what ninjas should be. I would have killed all those who opposed your rule and we would have ruled this country with strength through our power that would have made heaven and hell afraid of us. As Sasuke attacked once again with his sword, trying to cut Naruto's head completely off. You always called me a fool, Sasuke, don't you remember history? The Sage of the Six Paths chose a successor to help this world achieve peace through love. Jiraiya and my father believed that true peace is when every man can understand each other. I refused to throw away those teachings of peace for a false peace surrounded by fear through oppression, as Naruto tried to connect his kunai to the head of Sasuke. As both combatants refused to yield, Sasuke drew first blood as he cut Naruto across his leg with his sword. Naruto quickly regrouped and threw his kunai at the eye of Sasuke, hoping to get lucky. As Sasuke blocked the kunai, he saw that the kunai handle was wrapped in a paper tag bomb. As it exploded in front of Sasuke's face, Naruto rushed over and delivered a punch that took Sasuke off his feet. As Sasuke tried to recuperate from that heavy blow, Naruto delivered a kick to his head that left Sasuke dazed and confused. As Sasuke focused his Chidori energy through his sword, he aimed it at Naruto. Naruto dodged the electricity coming his way. I know I didn't see him wrap the paper tag around his kunai. He couldn't have pre-wrapped it earlier because it would have exploded. As Sasuke looked down, he saw blood on the kunai. Wait, he did have it pre-wrapped. It activates when his blood is put on the paper tag. But I didn't see him bite his finger. Wait, the blood from his. Very clever, Naruto. You used the blood from your leg wound to activate the kunai with the paper tag bomb. You are still quite the innovator when it comes to fighting, as Sasuke chuckled on Naruto's cleverness. You haven't seen anything yet, as Naruto poured every ounce of speed and power to take down the last Uchiha. Sasuke couldn't remember ever having such a battle that was taking him to his maximum potential. Naruto was the only ninja alive that could push Sasuke to his limit and beyond. That was what Sasuke respected the most from his blonde friend. Naruto, there's still time, join me my brother, together we can still make the Konoha the greatest of its time. Together we can make our own philosophy for the village, all you have to do is trust me. With you as the war hero and the new Hokage we can achieve your goal and minds, as Sasuke let his guard down. Like I said, I heard those fanatic rants from tyrants like you all my life. Everyone wants peace through devastation and murder. The price is always too high to pay, as Naruto looked at Sasuke as he dropped his guard also. You want the village to be corrupt-free and peaceful, right? Give that pampered third-rate ninja Hinata if he wants her that bad. You had your fun with her and she's been soiled by you. You can rub that in his face, have the baby aborted and come back to the village, become Hokage, and I'll kill those damn elders starting with Koharu and Homura. They're the ones that are the most corrupt. They're the ones that approached Hiyashi about giving Hinata to that rich bastard. You see, I did some checking, they've been lining their pockets with his money for the last year. That's why they are pushing for Hinata to be this man's wife so bad. She's a victim of their greed, and this is the village that you want to protect so bad? As Sasuke looked at Naruto in the eyes to let him know that he was telling him the truth. Naruto's anger began to rise to a whole new level. All he could think of was that he followed the rules faithfully and they took his happiness and love away for money. Sasuke sensed that Naruto was starting to break down from that news. Come on Naruto, give the rich ninja Hinata. You always liked Sakura, right? Well, you can have her until you get Hinata back. I know Sakura doesn't have what Hinata's got body-wise, but she is a decent lay. Just use her until you find someone better, but trust me, Sakura will do anything you ask, you ally-wise, as Sasuke smiled at Naruto. No, I refuse to let someone touch my wife. I refuse to abort my child. But most of all, I refuse you, Sasuke. I don't care if the whole council is corrupt, the villagers aren't. One day I will return and I'll get rid of all the corruption in our village, but for now I'm taking my wife to safety. As Naruto rushed Sasuke, he slashed him across his chest, making Sasuke winced in pain. It seems like you're still the fool, having an unfathomable loyalty to a village that despised you since birth. The village will be missing it, idiot, once I kill you. We could have made the Konoha great, but you lack the motivation to kill what's in your way to get what you want. That's something I'm never lacking. Any who stand in my way will feel the wrath of my blade. As Sasuke slashed Naruto across the chest in retaliation from his attack earlier. As two of the elite ninjas of their time era fought, the landscape began to change because of their unrivaled jutsus they used to try and kill each other. The land looked devastated with fire and wind-like devastation that destroyed the nearby trees. As both were nearly drained of their chakra and their muscles seemed torn from their battle, they continued to fight, one for the love of his family, the other for motivation of hatred to get rid of Konoha Council who made the village weak. As Sasuke prepared to attack Naruto once again, he felt a presence coming from behind him. He quickly dodged the attack and jumped to the side. As he looked down, he saw Hinata had punched a hole in the ground with a technique that looked like a lion heads attached to her fists. Well, you actually beat the pink-haired twit. Is that the gentle-stepped twin lion fists? I must say you're impressive, fighting while pregnant, and you came back to help your husband. So you ran away to take care of Sakura all by yourself? I wished now that your clan would have given me you. Oh well, I should have known that Sakura would have failed miserably. It's what she does the best. Hinata, you may want to kiss your husband goodbye because this is the last time you'll see him alive. But first let's get rid of that baby bump of yours. As Sasuke rushed Hinata, she barely had time to react from Sasuke's attack. As Sasuke had 4 of his fingers charged with his chakra, his aim was coming straight for the belly of Hinata. As he was an inch away, Naruto caught his wrist and twisted it until he heard Sasuke shriek in pain. Hands off the baby. As Naruto punched Sasuke so hard that a tooth stuck into Naruto's knuckle, he quickly removed the tooth and threw it on the ground. Hinata, let me handle this. You carry the future Uzumaki inside of you. This is something that I must handle alone. As Naruto rushed Sasuke, he steady beat him punch after punch. You bastard, you were going to kill my child. As Naruto kicked him in the mouth, Sasuke fell to the ground hard. Naruto got on top of Sasuke's chest and pounded away with heavy punches to his face. You backstabbing murderer, this is for Harumi. This is for Hinata. This one is for all those you murdered. As Naruto kept beating Sasuke in the face until his head was literally pounded into the ground, a small pool of blood began to pour from Sasuke's head as he was beaten violently for more than a minute. Hinata never saw Naruto to so merciless or out of control. She began to speak but her words couldn't come out of her mouth. Naruto. Naruto, stop please, it's over, he's beaten. You're not a killer like he is. You're a father and a husband and my one true love. As Hinata pleaded for her husband to return to the man she loved. As Naruto heard Hinata's plea, he stopped punching his former friend. He saw that Sasuke's face was swollen so bad that he didn't even look like himself at all. Naruto had almost given into his anger when he saw Sasuke try and hurt Hinata and the baby. As he walked away he heard Sasuke say something. See, you're a sentimental fool that can't do what it takes to remove the obstacles in your way. I'm here to kill you and you turn away. The leaf got you so brainwashed with that stupid philosophy of peace you'll walk away from an enemy that has vowed to kill not only you but your unborn child and to hand your wife over to a former enemy as a bargaining chip. This is what you're willing to sacrifice for your beloved village. You may think the village is worth saving but it's not. I will eventually be the one who will make the Konoha rise to greatness once again. Once I rebuild my clan we will kill all of the unethical elders and clan heads that don't see things my way. Itachi left the Konoha future to me and I won't fail. As Sasuke laid on the ground a bloody mess. Itachi wanted you to protect the village, not rule it through intimidation and terror. It is you that has been brainwashed first by Orochimaru and then again by Madara. Your viewpoint is the same as theirs. I hope in time that you can see that before it's too late. As Naruto backed away from his fallen friend. As Naruto walked away backwards facing his enemy, he learned never to turn his back on a fallen foe. Completely drained of almost all of his chakra, he hobbled next to his wife so they could begin their new lives. As they were leaving, an explosion ignited near them. Naruto knew that Sasuke somehow planted the paper bomb earlier. He quickly turned to face Sasuke once again. As he saw Sasuke flying in the air, his target was Hinata. Without hesitation he jumped in front of her and let the blade pierce him instead of his wife. As Sasuke looked at Naruto he smiled the most devilish grin Naruto had ever seen him smile. Typical, you were always my target. I knew if I went after your precious wife then you would have sacrificed yourself willingly to protect her. Once you're dead I'm going to open up that bitch and remove that bastard growing inside of her personally. As Sasuke began to laugh like a lunatic. As Naruto held onto the sword to stop it from going deeper, Hinata saw what Sasuke done to Naruto. As she reached from the back of Naruto's shoulder she placed a large amount of chakra into her 2 fingers and forced them into the eye of Sasuke. You little bitch. I'm going to make this real painful for you now. As Sasuke reached forward over Naruto's shoulder to grab her by her neck and pull her to him, Naruto, who had a kunai under his sleeve with a mechanical device, felt for the button. Naruto triggered it to spring out and with his hand speed he cut off 3 of Sasuke's fingers as he tried reaching for Hinata. As Sasuke jumped back and pulled the sword out of Naruto's top part of his chest he looked at his hand as the blood started to run out of his cut-off appendages. Naruto looked down and saw the 3 fingers. He quickly performed a Rasengan and smashed it into Sasuke's fingers, destroying his 3 digits completely. You motherfucker, I'll kill you and that bitch for taking away my jutsus. As Sasuke prepared to unleash the Mangekyo Sharingan most destructive power. Amaterasu. As he yelled it out nothing happened. Then suddenly Sasuke noticed that a large amount of blood was pouring from his eye. He suddenly felt a pain in his head worse than any headache could ever be. Everything became blurry and his equilibrium was off. As he closed his good eye, he noticed the pain in the eye that was struck by Hinata became darker and gray and then there was complete darkness. What did you do to me? I'm blind in my left eye. You bitch, you better fix what you did. Yelled Sasuke with so much anger that it unnerved Hinata. Good, I was only hoping to deactivate your Sharingan by shutting down that chakra point in your eye. This was an added bonus. As Hinata held onto her husband so he could stand up. As he raised his sword he ran at the duo hoping to kill them both, when suddenly a figure caught Sasuke's wrist and landed a devastating punch to the middle of his face. As Sasuke was knocked backwards he saw who had struck him. Kiba? What in the hell are you doing here? As Sasuke dropped his sword from the punch he received by Kiba. Not just me, asshole. as Kiba snarled more like a wild wolf than a human as he showed his fangs to his prey. Suddenly Sasuke's entire body was engulfed in Shino's Kakaichu insects. As they quickly drained Sasuke of his remaining chakra, he fell down completely exhausted from the battle and the insects. Kiba quickly went over and chained up Sasuke and covered his eyes so they would be of no use to him. As they both walked over toward Naruto and Hinata, Naruto formed a Rasengan to get ready to fight the two. Please Naruto, you're in no shape to fight us, it looks like that sword pierced your lung. I know you heal fast, but it will take you least an hour to even be at a 20% level, as Shino gave a strategic response of Naruto's ability. Why are you here? As Hinata took up her Jukin stance to take on her comrades. The Hokage sent us. She figured that Kaharu and Homura were up to something when they sent Sasuke to retrieve the two of you. As Kiba looked at Hinata. It looks like he wasn't diplomatic with the two of you like he was ordered? His mission was just to take you back to the Konoha, not to assassinate the both of you. We've been following Sakura and Sasuke since day one. We didn't know he killed Harumi until he left. I'm sorry Naruto, I know that she was a friend. We saw him leaving on a boat, so we pursued him. We had to stay far back so we wouldn't attract his attention. But now we have our orders to complete. I know you're trying to take me back, but that won't happen, not while I'm alive. As Hinata charged Kiba and Shino. Suddenly Sakura jumped in the front of Kiba and Shino. This backed off Hinata for a second. Kiba, Shino, let Hinata leave with Naruto. Let them have happiness here since they could not have it in our own village. As Sakura had her arms spread eagle out so no one would attack anyone. No one is taking anyone out of the land of spring. You're looking at two people that asked for political asylum, and you're in my country without consent. Attacking an intended citizen of the land of spring is a crime, yelled the female voice. As Kiba, Sakura and Shino looked up, there was a small unit of ninjas and bodyguards in weird armor that surrounded them. Sakura recognized right away who it was. She quickly took a knee and lowered her head. Princess Koyuki Kazuhana, we were following after two deserters, that is what brought us to your land. As Sakura knew that if she reported all three to the rest of the daimyos, the Leaf Village would be scrutinized for not following simple protocol when entering another country. Hey, isn't that the actress who plays Princess Gale in those movies, Yukie Fujikaze? Asked a curious Kiba. Yes, that's her stage name. She also the ruler of this land, so don't attack her bodyguards or ninjas. This could start an international incident which could lead to war, as Shino made Kiba take a knee as well. As the princess's bodyguards and healers came down, they began to work on Naruto's injuries. As Koyuki came over, she looked at Hinata and smiled. You must be Hinata. Naruto described you to the letter except for the blonde hair and green eyes. Luckily I can recognize Naruto from a mile away, even if he does have red hair. Don't worry, you're safe here, but I have two people that want to see if you're alright, as Koyuki pointed to Makoto and Akina. As they both rushed down, they gave her the biggest hug she ever received as she blushed at their affection. As for the four trespassers in my country, I want you to leave immediately before I send out my troops to capture you and throw you in the dungeons. If any Leaf Ninja enters my land without going through the proper channels will pay a hefty price, as Koyuki pointed for them to leave. As Shino stood there, he looked at Hinata and began to speak. As Shino took off his glasses, he had tears in his eyes. Hinata, please be safe. I care for you as I would a real sister. When the Hokage gave me this mission, I took it with a heavy heart. Now that I see you with your husband, I'm glad I failed this mission. Naruto, make sure she's happy and safe. Hinata, I never been this hurt in my life. I'm so upset it hurts to talk. My throat hurts so bad it feels like it's closing up. I'm sad but happy for you at the same time. I wish that you could come back to the village and be happy. Hinata, continue to have the heart you share with everyone. It's the greatest quality that inspire everyone around you. As Shino put back on his glasses to hide his pain from losing a little sister. Ever since she met Shino, he never removed his glasses, even when she asked to see the color of his eyes when they were younger. As she looked into his eyes before he covered them up, they were the deepest brown eyes she could ever recall seeing in her life, and the saddest. She smiled at the bug handler and nodded her head to let him know everything would be alright. Naruto, protect Hinata at all cost. If I is so much here that she's unhappy, I'm coming back, welcomed or unwelcomed, and kick the shit out of you. As Kiba tried to hide his pain from the two. Naruto, you were right. Hinata is your soulmate. I'm sorry for everything I done to you as a child all the way up until now. Hinata, please take care of Naruto and his child. You are the glue that will hold the family together, as Sakura began to cry. As the royal bodyguards went and helped Naruto and Hinata, Kiba picked up the tied-up Sasuke and began their way back to the Konoha. As Naruto watched their friends head back to where they came from, they finally took a deep breath and enjoyed their freedom to be together as husband and wife. They knew no matter how brief it was still time they could share together. As Kiba walked over to Sasuke, he heard Sasuke mumbling something. "What did you say, you piece of shit?" growled Kiba so loud that the guards turned to look their way. "I said point me in the direction where Naruto is standing so I can tell him something. I can't see, you dumb mutt, because you blindfolded me." As Sasuke made it to his feet. As Kiba helped up the half-blind Uchiha, he pulled away from Kiba. "Naruto, you're still the fool. How many times do I have to tell you that line about peace and love is a fool's quest? There will never be peace as long as there are men like you and me. This world is built on dominance and suppression. With your way of thinking, you will always be weak. You'll always fight and always fail for a cause that can't be achieved. Your child will be just as weak as you. No weaker, because he will follow your ideology and be the fool just as his failure of a father and mother." As Sasuke gave a half-grin at the blonde. "It's just a matter of time when your new home will make you do something dishonorable that you know is wrong. What are you going to do then, run away to another village again? I defeated you along with my wife, who believes just as strongly as I do that peace is attainable. It's you who are the weak one, Sasuke. You were cherished, you refused that. You were loved, you refused that. You were forgiven, and you spit in my face and tried to kill my child. For what? Treating you like a brother. There is nothing left between us, Sasuke. We're now enemies. If you come 3 miles around my family, the last Uchiha will perish." As Naruto held onto his wounds and looked at his one-time brother. As Sakura, Shino and Kiba looked at Naruto, they noticed the one-time face of happiness and free spirit he once possessed was gone. Sasuke gained a powerful enemy this day, and if he came around Naruto like he said, may heaven have mercy on his soul, because Naruto wasn't. As Sakura was walking away, she heard her name being called. "Sakura, please forgive me. I thought that you were trying to kill my child along with Sasuke. I attacked you because this is all me and Naruto have in this life together now. I couldn't let anyone take that away from me. Please forgive me for my attacks, but find forgiveness in your heart for me when I said those cruel words to you. You are a true friend and I wish you happiness in your life." As Hinata bowed to her one-time friend, and so did Naruto. As Koyuki came over to Naruto, she made him lay down as her medics finished trying to heal him. Naruto told them that he was using his chakra to attend to his wounds and they need to make sure his wife was alright. Damn, he's a stubborn one. He had a sword pierce his chest and he basically fighting against me to heal him. As Koyuki's medic tried to hold him down. Hinata came over and quickly pressed some nerves, making Naruto relax so the healer could do his job. This can't be the same Naruto from my comic book? I mean, he has red hair and he would never abandon the Leaf Village. As Makoto looked at Naruto. "It's me and it's complicated. I'll tell you everything once we get to my place," as Naruto rubbed Makoto's head. As the little dark-haired boy smiled at his hero come to life, he grabbed his little sister hand and followed behind Naruto and the healers. "Naruto, you're not going to your new home yet. First of all, you're going to let that wound of yours heal and then you can go home. You're going to be a guest at my palace and I don't want to hear anything else about why you can't stay." As she looked down at Naruto as he was on a stretcher. As he was about to say something, Hinata gave him that look as to say, "Don't even think about arguing with her." He sighed and let the medics do their job. He looked at the view and smiled. He finally had a life worth living with the love of his life. As Kiba walked on the side of Shino, he asked him did he want to talk about Hinata living in the land of spring. Shino ducked his head into that large overcoat that he wears like a turtle and shook his head no. Kiba knew that Shino cared for Hinata deeply, but he never thought in a million years that he would see Shino emotionally break down the way he did. He decided if Shino ever wanted to talk, he would listen with an open ear. "Sakura, get your ass over here and heal my hand. That son of a bitch Naruto destroyed 3 of my fingers. I swear when we meet again I'm going to hold his child's decapitated head up in front of him when he takes his last breath from dying by my hands for what he did to me," yelled a pissed off Sasuke. "I suggest you watch your tongue, Sasuke, because you're talking about our teammate's child also. It would be a shame if something was to happen to you on the way back to the village," as Kiba grabbed him by his collar. "Don't worry, Kiba. He knows now that he can't defeat Naruto, and for his hand let the village doctors patch him up. You ungrateful bitch, how dare you refuse me? I let you share my body. I gave you status of an Uchiha concubine. I knew I should have never fucked with you. You're just a waste of time and my semen, yelled Sasuke so loud that Kiba covered his ears. Sakura rushed towards Sasuke and delivered a devastating blow to his head. So you just gave me your body but not your love? I stood by your side faithfully, more faithfully than a wife. And yet I'm just some whore to you? I don't care what you do anymore. I won't be by your side to support you or to care for you. You so high and mighty Uchiha are on your own. You better hope we make it to the village before those missing appendages of yours infect your whole hand. As Shino pulled Sakura off of Sasuke, who felt her hands continually slap his face. Say what you want, Sakura, but you'll be back in my bed before the week is out. No one else wants you but some loser in the village like Lee, and that's probably about it. Naruto wised up and left your sorry ass for someone who was way wire, prettier and rich. So being my whore is an honor for you because basically what else do you have? As Sasuke started laughing menacingly. Suddenly Shino released his Kakaichu insect on Sasuke. They sucked the little chakra that he had right out of him. I'm tired of hearing his egotistical view on how great he thinks he is. Sakura, you know what he's saying isn't true. He says that to you to make you feel less than dirt so he can use you as he sees fit. You're better than that and don't let him tell you otherwise, as Shino turned around and began to walk back along the path. Hey, why don't you carry this scumbag? You're the one that drained his sorry ass. Why'd I have to carry this sack of shit? As Kiba gave a hard kick to Sasuke's ribs before lifting him up on his shoulders. As they got on the boat, Sakura called for a hawk to deliver a message to Kakashi. She would have done it earlier, but she knew if Sasuke seen the hawk, he would have hurt her for trying to inform Kakashi where Naruto was at. As they set sail, Sakura couldn't wait to get home and start her life anew. 3 days had passed. As Naruto stretched out the kinks in his muscles, he looked down in the bed and saw a sleeping Hinata hugged up with a pillow. She had a little baby bump in her stomach that made her look too adorable in Naruto's eyes. He decided to let her rest and go practice outside some of his jutsus. As he wrote a note telling her his whereabouts, he headed out of the palace bedroom and into the hallway. As he walked down the long corridor, he saw Akina and Makoto running his way. Man, you really do heal fast. I thought you would be in the bed for another 5 months. We came by every day to see you. Did you get our cards? Asked a curious Akina. Yes, thank you very much for keeping me in your thoughts. I really am grateful. Would you two like to train with me? As Naruto dropped to one knee and looked at the small children in the eyes. As they eagerly accepted, they couldn't wait for them to begin their first lesson, especially Makoto. As they headed outside, Naruto heard one of the palace guards calling his name. Princess Koyuki would like for you and your wife to meet her along with her advisors in 2 hours. She has much to ask of you and I hope that you be prompt. As the guard lowered his head and headed back down the hallway. As Sasuke was chained to the walls in the interrogation room, his hands were covered in mitts and his eyes completely covered. As the 2 old elders walked through the door, they sat down and scowled at the last Uchiha. You had one mission: to bring back Hinata Hyuga and to dispose of the Nine Tails container. You just about caused an international incident with the Land of Spring and you killed Harumi Nakajima. The Iwa Nation is calling for your head on a platter. The Konoha clan members are angry since you went off your mission to kill both. You told me to kill Naruto, or did you forget? His little whore wasn't coming peacefully, so I had to do what needed to be done. The little pale-eyed woman blinded me in one eye and Naruto took 3 fingers. I believed payback was the right thing to do since they wanted to end my ninja career. As Sasuke let it be known, he wasn't intimidated by them. This is a disaster. We had no choice but to ask Naruto and Hinata to return with full pardons. It seems that every civilian knows about your battle with Naruto. Care to explain? Asked Koharu as she grabbed Sasuke by his chin to make him aware of the dire situation. I have been down here for 3 days now. Why not ask Tsunade or that pink-haired bimbo Sakura? I have a question for you 2 old farts. When are you going to release me? I'm getting tired of hanging around here. No pun intended, and sick of this food and that idiot Inochi trying to break down my mental barriers. In time you don't know what he might find out I'm hiding, as Sasuke laughed with smugness at the 2 elders. As Homura approached Sasuke with a knife to slit his throat, he heard Sasuke began to talk again. Oh, and if I die by chance by any abnormal way such as poisoning or stabbing, then one of my cohorts will make it public all the bribes you two been taking since the third Hokage. Do you two think your grand image of the leaders of the village could sustain such a horrid scandal? Just think they will investigate you even more, probably all the way back to the second Hokage. I'm pretty sure since you've been dirty this far in life you don't want all of your dirty laundry to be shown to the public, now do you? As Sasuke smirked underneath his blindfold. Homura quickly put away his blade. Alright, we will talk with the Hokage about releasing you, just hang in there for a little while. We sent a message to the Land of Stone and told their leader to come to our village for renegotiation since Hinata is no longer the bargaining chip on the table. We should have never dealt with you, Sasuke. Because of you the village is going to suffer like never before, as Kaharu grabbed Sasuke by his hair. When dealing with the devil, don't, as Sasuke shook his head to make his captor release his hair. Just think that rich bastard may actually ask for all his money back since you couldn't deliver the Hyuga to him as promised. All that money he paid you two inept old fools and you couldn't even deliver a woman to his bed. It's so pathetic it isn't worth laughing about. Oh, what the hell, I'll laugh anyway. As Sasuke let out a bellowing laugh, this unnerved the hardcore militant elders. In all their years of knowing the last Uchiha he had never laughed, but now his laughter frightened them to the core of their existence. Oshima, how many assassins did you hire to kill me? As the tall well-built man walked to his sparring arena. I hired 15 of the most well-trained killers of the 5 big countries, Lord Shiva. These men know if they are the one to kill you they will receive all of your wealth. This is something no assassin could pass up. They would have enough money to retire for 5 generations. As the manservant known as Oshima walked down the arena stairs with his master. As J-Tel Shiva headed into the middle of the arena he looked at his adversaries and motioned for them to attack. As Oshima saw one of the guards coming down with a letter in his hand address for his master, he quickly opened it and read its contents. As all of the assassins looked at their opponent each one did not think of teamwork but the money they would receive if they were the ones to kill the rich death-seeking man. As a man with a long spear charged J-Tel with animal ferocity, J-Tel sidestepped quickly and snapped his neck with ease. A female swordmaster ran and dove in the air to cut him in two. He easily caught the sword with his bare hand and punched the female swordsman in her stomach. He threw her down as hard as he could and delivered a death stomp to her head, leaving her lifeless. As the rest saw his brutality they all rushed to kill him so they could live. Money now was the last thing on their minds. As each assassin tried many jutsus and secret techniques to take him down, all attempts failed miserably against his tremendous skills he displayed. As he looked at all the scattered bodies laid out in the arena he approached his manservant Oshima. How long did it take for me to defeat them all? As he grabbed a towel from his servant. Approximately 1 minute and 42 seconds, Lord Shiva, as Oshima looked at his master. J-Tel quickly backhanded Oshima so hard to the face that he flew into the wall and left an imprint on it. I gave you one task and you failed it miserably. I told you to find the most skilled killers there were and you bring me genin school dropouts. You wasted my time, Oshima. I should kill you along with those worthless bastards, as he picked up his manservant by the neck. Your skills are just too powerful for anyone to be compared to. Only a god can compete with your powers, Lord Shiva. You're a god among ants. Please spare me, I had always served you faithfully, as Oshima held onto his master arm to keep from being choked to death. You're right as usual, Oshima. I'm sorry I let my temper get the best of me. It's not like I expect that much from you to begin with. I saw one of the guards bringing a letter down. What did it say? As J-Tel wiped the blood off his hands and face. It says your presence is required in the Konohagakure for renegotiating on a sensitive matter. It asked, can you make it within the next couple of days? As Oshima shook with fear from reading the letter. Sure, I have nothing planned. Make sure someone come and clean up this mess. Have my bags packed along with yours and have someone find me more willing and powerful candidates to kill me, as J-Tel left the arena stairs and headed to his chambers to meditate. Oshima wished that one day someone actually succeeded in killing that madman. As Naruto finished training his new apprentices, he saw Hinata coming outside with some pastries that she handed to the children. Hinata leaned over and kissed Naruto good morning as the two little kids snickered at their display of affection. Come Naruto, we have an audience with Koyuki and her advisors and we don't want to keep them waiting. Akina and Makoto keep practicing until we get back and then we're going to take a walk around the town. as Hinata smiled at the two children. As Hinata and Naruto walked into the hallway, a messenger was waiting for them. He quickly told them to follow him. As he led them to a double door that had a royal design on it, he opened the door and there stood Koyuki and 7 of her cabinet members staring at the two newlyweds. As they came into the center of the auditorium, both took a knee in front of the princess. "What are you doing, Naruto? As long as I am alive, you will never have to bow down before me. Arise so we may ask what your intentions are for my country." As Koyuki smiled at the red-haired Naruto. "Wait, what do you mean he doesn't have to bow? He shall show the proper respect for you letting him stay in the land of spring," yelled one of the advisors so loud the all eyes were on him. "First of all, if it wasn't for Naruto, I wouldn't be on the throne. He risked everything to keep me safe and he defeated my uncle in the process, so you see it's Naruto who should receive the proper respect. If it wasn't for him, you would still be groveling under my uncle's cruel reign of terror." As Princess Koyuki stood up and stared at her advisor in anger. "I'm sorry, Your Highness, I apologize to all 3 of you," as he took a seat. "As I was saying, what do you intend to do for my country, Naruto? Well, I have enough money and some land I bought to live a life of peace with my wife. I don't have that many skills except that of a ninja," as Naruto looked at Koyuki. "That is why we ask you here, Naruto. We received a letter from the Konohagakure stating that you and your wife shall be pardoned for all acts of desertion and treason if you return immediately to the village. It also states that the 2 of you can stay married, but you must hand over all your family fortune and jutsus for the commonwealth of the village. If you decided to return, you will not be accosted by my royal bodyguards or military personnel. But we have another offer for you, Naruto, if you stay. We are in the midst of building a hidden village in the land of spring. We have many ninja clans in our country, but they're not united like the ones in the Konohagakure. If you decide to stay, we would like you to lead this hidden village as a potential leader. You have great respect among all the 5 big countries. We have been debating to build a hidden village for years, but we couldn't find anyone that had the experience and ability to lead them. You, Naruto, have respect among my people for returning me to power. I ask you this as a friend, help my country," as Princess Koyuki bowed her head. Many of the advisors couldn't think of a more qualified candidate than Naruto. He was a living legend and their own people told stories on how he came and defeated Koyuki's uncle at the age of 13. "How many clan do you have in this country?" as Naruto looked at all the advisors. "Just 7, but there are others, but these are known for their bloodline and some for their clan names on how powerful they are," said one of the advisors. "Take time to think about it, Naruto. The decision is yours and your wife. Just give us 48 hours so we can start looking for another applicant if you refuse," as Koyuki and her advisors gave Naruto and Hinata permission to leave. As they exited the room, both said nothing about the choices that were given to them. As they made it back to their room, Hinata pulled out some paper and pen and began to write. "To the Hokage and esteemed elders and clan's head, I, Hinata and Naruto Uzumaki, humbly decline your kind and gracious offer to return to the Konohagakure. We find it in our best concern to take up permanent residency in the land of spring. Here we can make a difference than being betrayed by our so-called leaders. We will never call our former village enemy or its people. We choose to bring the will of fire to a place that needs hope, courage and peace. We pray that you tell the villagers the truth of me and my husband's move to another country. You will never have to worry or be burdened by the village's 2 failures any longer. We pray that change comes quick to our former home and that the elders stop thinking of ninjas as a means to do dishonorable things in the name of peace for the village. Instead of thinking of them as expendable ninjas, you should think of your ninjas as part of your family. Sincerely, the new clan leaders of Uzumaki clan of the land of spring. Hinata Uzumaki, Naruto Uzumaki. A new era is born in a country that will be born to a new will of fire started by 2 failures that will change the world for the better." Sarutobi Hiruzen was currently sitting in his office. To anyone who should venture in, it would seem as though he was doing the paperwork spread throughout his desk. However, he was currently deep in thought, pondering the situation the 2 vessels find themselves in. The villagers and shinobi alike were in a state of panic, and he couldn't really blame them. The chakra that the boy released was unlike any he had ever felt before. Those nearest to the epicenter of the blast were reportedly forced to their knees fighting their own fear for the simple task of drawing breath. There were 24 civilians who could not handle the pressure and simply blacked out. And in the case of one elderly man, dropped to the floor and suffered from a mild heart attack. The man survived, luckily enough. He would have to take measures he did not want to if this was not the case. How a mere child possessed such powerful chakra was the predominant thought running through his mind, Jinchuriki or not. And then there was Mito. He could not for the life of him understand how she was still conscious when the ANBU arrived. For even him, one of the best ANBU under his command was given pause by the chakra emitted from the boy. And that was just another matter to ponder. How did the child unlock his chakra? It was a difficult process that usually takes up to a month to accomplish, and in very special cases around 2 weeks. Had the boy been told about chakra by somebody and proceeded to practice on his own? And what of Mito? He knew from experience that the Kyuubi's chakra should have healed her in less than an hour. The last time she had hurt herself, he had rushed her to the hospital with a broken wrist. The first doctor he approached refused to heal the demon, as he so eloquently put it. So he had proceeded to the nearest empty room, laid Mito on one of the beds and calmly walked up to the man. And in a flash faster than lightning, he fell dead with a kunai lodged deep between his eyes. If you account for the time it took for Naruto to get her to the tower, and the refusal of the doctor to treat her, it was somewhere in the range of a mere half-hour, and by that time, there was nothing to indicate she ever had a broken wrist in the first place. But after 2 hours of waiting at the hospital and no improvements to either, he had to return to his office to complete his work. A village cannot run itself after all. There was a sudden burst of chakra as Tiger shunshined into the room, breaking Hiruzen from his thoughts. Report on Uzumaki Naruto and Uzumaki Mito. The ANBU said as he kneeled before the Hokage. Continue, the Sandame said in the most neutral voice he could. He might have emotional attachments to the two children, but he could not let that show in the current situation. Currently the boy's condition has not changed at all. Doctors have still not been able to successfully use any techniques nor penetrate farther than his skin. He replied. What of the girl? The Hokage asked. Uzumaki Mito's condition has stabilized. It also seems the Kyuubi's chakra has healed her broken arm. The burn marks she received from the unknown chakra have lessened, however they have yet to completely fade. She has to be kept under constant sedation as the pain from the wounds seems to be too much for her to handle. How is that possible? The Hokage asked. It has already been 6 hours since the incident occurred. The chakra from the Kyuubi should have healed her hours ago. The ANBU nodded. That is the assumption I had as well. However, given how much time has already passed, I have come to a very worrisome conclusion. And what would that be? The Hokage asked with narrowed eyes. That the chakra expelled from the boy is stronger than that of the Kyuubi's, as it is the only foreseeable way the beast's chakra could be negated in such a way. The ANBU replied without a shred of doubt in his voice and posture. Impossible. The Hokage barked as he stood up. There is nothing with greater power in this world. The ki being radiated from the aged leader was immense, but highly focused and refined, and it was all being directed towards the ANBU agent. Tiger, knowing that an explanation was in order, did his very best to speak under the stern gaze of Hiruzen. Hokage-sama, given the corrosive properties of a Biju's chakra, the girl's wounds are to be expected, however. The Kyuubi is the most powerful of the 9 and as such should have little to no problem healing the wounds inflicted upon the girl. Even if only half of it was sealed into her, the Kyuubi is said to be incomparably stronger than the other 8, which leads me to believe that we are dealing with something we cannot as of yet comprehend. The Hokage was standing as still as a statue as he tried his utmost to understand what Tiger was telling him. It made sense. However frightening that was to consider. I understand what you are trying to say, Tiger, but you are implying that a human child possesses more powerful chakra than the strongest entity humanity has ever come across. Spoke Hiruzen in a tired and weary voice. It is not often so much happens in a single day after all. I have heard enough theories for today, Tiger. Spoke the Sandame, especially ones such as these. Return to the hospital and notify me as soon as one regains consciousness. Hopefully we can find an explanation to all that has happened. Hi, Hokage-sama, Tiger said before disappearing. Hospital. Same day. 7:00 p.m. As Naruto slowly awoke, he became aware of 2 things. The first, he felt amazing. Truly his body had never felt so unrestrained and powerful before. The second, he was not alone. Slowly opening his eyes so that they may adjust to the light, he noticed 2 figures standing by his bed and conversing quietly. Hokage-sama, came the harsh whisper of his voice, trying to draw the attention of the man. Almost instantly, they were by his side. The Hokage had an expression of relief on his old wrinkly face. He could not see the other Mons, as it was hidden by an animal-themed mask. Naruto-kun. He began slowly, giving the boy a chance to adjust before continuing, "How are you feeling, my boy?" What happened? He managed to choke out. Even though he felt amazing, his body was very fatigued. Why and how, he didn't know. Do you not remember? The Hokage asked with confusion etched on his face. You drew upon your chakra, and the results were very surprising. Now it was Naruto who was confused. Chakra? He asked. I am afraid I do not know what that is, Hokage-sama. He was quite sure he had heard the term being used before, but he had no clue as to what it could possibly mean. The Hokage's face faded from the relieved and confused expression it held before, only to set itself into a very neutral and unreadable one. Do not play games with me, boy, he said in a very sharp tone. What has happened because you decided to get a head start, or other such nonsense is a very serious matter. Naruto was quite surprised at the tone of voice the Hokage was using, but decided defending himself was the only course of action open to him at the moment. Hokage-sama, I can honestly say I have no idea what happened. What happened? The Sandaime basically shouted, damn near half the orphanage is nothing but rubble is what happened. The Hokage was angry now. Tiger's theory made far too much sense, and he needed answers to put his mind at ease. Knowing that shouting would get him nowhere with the boy, he tried his very best to calm himself as much as possible and spoke in the friendliest tone he could. Naruto, you need to listen to me now. I need to know the name of the person who told you about chakra and how to unlock it. You also need to explain what happened when you did so. But he wasn't listening. His mind was stuck on two words, orphanage, rubble. Where is Mito? He suddenly shouted, surprising himself and the others in the room at the forcefulness in his voice. The Hokage's face softened slightly at his question. She is in the room next to this one. He replied, hoping to get this out of the way so he could get the information he needed from the boy. Jumping of the bed and running towards the door as fast as he could, surprising both the ANBU and the Hokage at just how quickly he was moving. He was never this fast, the Hokage thought in wonder. How is a 5-year-old child moving at low Chunin speed? The ANBU questioned himself silently. The slight pause was enough for Naruto to bolt out the door and into the next room. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw Mito lying on the bed motionless. Slowly approaching the bed, he noticed a faint mark on her right arm. Eyes widening slightly, was that because of me? He questioned himself. She is fine. Her body is just resting from her recovery. He heard a voice say from behind him. Turning, he saw the Hokage staring at him intently, although it was hard to tell with the ANBU. Did I do that? He asked quietly. The Hokage nodded. He wasn't going to sugarcoat the situation. He needed answers from the boy, and if that meant breaking down a few emotional barriers, then so be it. Naruto, you need to tell me what happened. Half of the orphanage has been destroyed and your sister was injured. What exactly happened? I want to know everything. Naruto slowly nodded his head. Taking a few moments to get his thoughts in order, he began. Mito and I were both alone in the orphanage. She was reading a book and I was thinking. Here he hesitated slightly, thinking about why we are treated differently to the other children who live there. At this, the Hokage flinched. But I couldn't figure it out. It's like the answer was right in front of me, but I just couldn't grasp it. I remembered reading something about meditation and how it helps clear your mind. It was at this point the Hokage started piecing together what exactly had happened. And it wasn't exactly helping to ease his mind. But when I attempted it, something else drew my attention. He stopped to try and find words to describe what exactly it felt like. Like a tiny ball just behind your navel, correct? The Hokage tried. Naruto nodded. Sort of, it actually felt really big as my stomach. The Hokage looked towards the ANBU member, who was staring at the boy with what he assumed was shock behind his mask. What the boy was describing should be impossible. Chakra should not be so dense or concentrated. Even when he felt out his own chakra, it was only around half the size the boy just described, even considering the difference in their size and mass. But considering the damages done to the orphanage and the state of panic the village was in, he could do nothing but believe the boy. That is the energy we call chakra. Here is an explained. And you are sure no one explained chakra and the way to unlock it beforehand? The Hokage questioned him. A simple shake of the head was his answer. It actually felt like there were two different kinds. The boy suddenly stated, causing the ANBU to tense. The Hokage's face returned to the neutral expression from earlier. Explain, he ordered. Well, after I let the first one move around freely, I felt a second one. It was even larger and, he paused searching for the right words. It felt more uncontrolled and thicker than the first one did. The Hokage was almost afraid to ask, but he did so anyway. How much larger? I don't really know, Hokage-sama. While it was larger than the first, it also felt different. It's like comparing the ocean to a lake. There was a sharp intake of breath and the Hokage turned to see Tiger standing as stiff as a board. Only through years of dealing with situations and seeing things that would break any other man, was he able to stay relatively calm. On the outside at least, it was the first time dealing with a situation such as this after all. And as such, his thoughts were traveling a mile a minute, doing his best to comprehend what exactly this child was telling him. I see, he said, with a little more force than he had intended. You may wait here for your sister to wake up. When she does, I expect both of you in my office immediately. Come, Tiger, we have much to discuss. And with no further exchange of words, both disappeared from the room. Underground base. Several hours after the incident. As he walked along the dark hallways where he spent most of his days, his cane cracking against the ground every time he took a step, a small smile made its way onto his bandaged face. Today was the day he would get something he had been craving for a long time. After years of waiting, his patience had finally paid off. Reaching his destination, a large hall with a single throne-like pedestal at the very back, situated at the top of a short flight of stairs. As he made his way towards it, a single man dropped down in front of him. My lord, your guest has arrived and wishes to speak with you. The man in an ANBU uniform with a tipples tanto and blank white mask spoke. Excellent. The man with the cane replied, send him in immediately. The man disappeared with no further exchange of words. As he made himself comfortable on his throne, he couldn't help but feel excited. He had been waiting so long for this day, and it had finally arrived. He watched silently as a man clad in a black uniform with a few lines of red thrown in walked towards him, diligently followed by the blank masked ANBU, eyes of red and black glowing as he did so. I see you have finally arrived. Spoke the bandaged man. Do you have it? The man with the red eyes nodded slightly, showing him the sealing scroll he held in his hand. With a flourish he unsealed its contents. A single jar with 2 eyes, exactly like the man's own. I have the eyes as promised. If you fulfill your end of the bargain, you shall receive the rest of them as we have agreed. The bandaged man smirked as he gazed onto his prize with his single eye. Not for much longer, he thought. But he had one more thing to confirm. And you are sure these are the eyes of Shisui? He asked. The other man nodded. I would know, I removed them myself. Very well then, the one-eyed man said, although I am not complaining, rather curious as to why you approached me. I would have thought that you of all people would have attempted this sort of thing alone. The other man spoke with slight disdain in his voice. While I am confident in both my clan and myself, I am not stupid. If we went up against an entire village, we would surely be slaughtered. I came to you because I have heard very interesting whispers of your expertise, pertaining to matters such as these. A small smirk graced the other man's face. Very well, until we meet again. Fugaku. To you as well, Danzo. Mito's mindscape. Oni-san. Mito called out once again, her voice echoing along the empty corridors she currently found herself in. For the past 20 minutes she had been aimlessly wandering through intersecting hallways that seemed to stretch on forever with no end in sight. She was currently pondering how she got in here. It appeared to be a prison, with cast iron doors around every corner and along every hallway. But what really drew her attention were the 2 pipes lined on each wall. The first was very large and seemed to be leaking a red acidic-like liquid. Every time a drop touched the floor it would hiss and a small cloud of smoke would be released into the air, only for the ground to almost immediately seal over. The first 5 minutes she was here she simply watched the process repeat itself over and over. Quickly becoming bored of the repeated phenomenon, she began to search for a way out. And more importantly, find her brother. She paid no attention to the much smaller pipe directly underneath the first, as it did not seem to be doing anything out of the ordinary. She was quickly becoming bored of the endless walking, with no exit in sight and no idea where Naruto could possibly be. She slumped against one of the walls, slowly sliding down to a sitting position. The last thing she could remember was her brother radiating that powerful and frightening energy. She could recall how scared she was at that moment. But at the time that was just an insignificant thought at the very back of her mind, telling her to run while she still had the chance, to get away from the overpowering energy being released by her brother. But her mind was overcome with the concern she had for him. If she had felt the way she did, she didn't want to think what it was like right in the middle of it all. But thinking of the smile that had made its way onto his face truly put her on edge. It was almost like he was enjoying it. But that couldn't be the case, could it? The energy and the feelings that had accompanied it were terrifying. All she had wanted to do was latch on to her brother and beg him to stop, but she was unable to at the time. She had been rooted to the spot in fear and the instinctual desire to flee. Broken from her thoughts as a warm gust of air hit her in the face, she immediately stood. That was the first current of air she had felt since waking up. Quickly deducing that it must be a way out, she started rushing towards the source, turning down random corridors and following the warmth the air provided. Although she did feel that something wasn't right, the air came in precisely timed bursts that did not seem completely natural. Turning another corner, she saw a bright light at the very end. Smirking as she thought she had found a way out, she picked up as much speed as she could, only to come to a grinding halt as a feeling of pure evil and terror washed over her. In front of her stood massive bars, stretching farther up than her eyesight allowed her to see. Each bar seemed to be as thick as a fully grown man. And right in the middle of it all was a single slip of paper with the kanji seal on it. As she was staring, completely transfixed by the scale of such a thing, two blood-red eyes slowly opened behind their cage. So it seems my container has finally decided to grace me with her presence. Tell me, mortal, how long has it been in the outside world? Mito could only stand there in shock as she gazed into the eyes of the terrifying beast, unmoving and unable to form a coherent sentence as her mind drew a blank. Speak, mortal, for you are trying my patience, the beast spoke in an agitated voice. As it did so, light seemed to flood in from behind it, allowing Mito to see the head of a fox, and 9 tails flickering behind it, each one thicker and more intimidating than the bars that bound it. What are you? Was the only thing she could say at the moment. The beast's eyes narrowed as she asked the question, almost expecting it to lunge and tear her apart. So she was genuinely surprised when it answered. I am the strongest of the 9 Biju. It said in a loud and booming voice purveying the sheer size and magnitude of the entity. The one you humans saw fit to call the 9 tails. Mito's eyes widened at the implications and she took a step back in fear. If this was truly the 9 tails, why was it here? Wherever here is, she decided to ask just that. Why are you here? The Yondaime Hokage killed you 5 years ago. So it has been 5 years, he beast said under its breath, but to her, it might as well have shouted for all the difference it made. As it turned its attention back to Mito, there was a glint in its eye. Very well, mortal, since I have nothing else to do and no way out of this cage, I shall tell you about that night. And perhaps we can even come to some sort of agreement. At this, its face twisted into an ugly mockery of a smile, a truly evil and terrifying sight to behold. Just know this, all is not as it should be. Hospital. Soon after Hiruzen left, Naruto had been patiently waiting for his sister to regain consciousness, resting his head next to her on the bed whispering silent apologies. It had only been a couple of minutes since the Hokage had left him with her. I did not think you would be so close to her, a voice suddenly rang out directly behind him. He jumped, quickly spinning around to assess the threat the person who spoke posed to his welfare. Only to be given pause, for standing directly in front of him was the strangest man he had ever seen. He was garbed in a pitch-black cloak with what seemed to be a plant growing out of either side of his neck, stopping just past the top of his head, and green-colored hair. But the strangest thing was the man had 2 very distinct colors of skin, splitting his body perfectly in half, one side pitch black, and the other a pure white. My, so jumpy, he spoke with 2 very distinct tones of voice. Who the hell are you? Naruto spoke with fear in his voice. This man could have easily killed him if he so wished. Me? Well, I suppose you could say I am a close family friend, he said with a smile on his face. The only family I have is Mito, Naruto responded with an edge to his voice. The man looked confused. She did not tell you? I suppose it does not truly matter. But still, I wonder why? Who are you? Naruto asked with much more force and venom in his voice this time. Who, me? The plant man answered innocently. You can just call me Zetsu. He stated. What do you mean by family friend? Naruto asked. You shall find out later when she deems you ready. Spoke Zetsu. Who is it you are talking about? Said Naruto, narrowing his eyes. An amused smile spread across Zetsu's face, just imagining what Naruto's own would look like after his next statement. Why, the woman who spoke to you after your little episode, of course. He was not disappointed. The look of shock that spread across his face was priceless. How do you know about that? Naruto shouted. I haven't told anybody anything about that. How I know does not matter. If she chose not to tell you, then it is not my place, but I am her will that has been given life. And you are the one who will bring her dreams to fruition. Before Naruto could reply or ask any more questions, the man threw a scroll at him before sinking into the ground, leaving behind no evidence that he had ever been there. Glancing down, he saw the single word that was printed on the very front of said scroll. Shikatsumyaku. It was a peaceful day in the village of Konoha for most of its citizens, simply going about their day in peace. The market was bustling with activity and the laughter of people, buying and selling their goods. It was just a normal day. That is until a blur came racing through the streets, kicking up dust and blowing items of their stalls, too fast for any civilian eye to catch. Loud cries of anger and indignation followed in its wake, as well as curses from the owners of the stores whose items had been damaged or broken from the fierce winds. But before anyone could even fully recover from their surprise, the winds died down and the blur disappeared behind a corner further down the street. He continued running even after the shouts and curses had long been lost to the fierce winds that roared behind him in his wake. He could not stop now, not when he had an armful of stolen produce. It would not do to give the villagers even more reason to hate the demon. Turning the final corner and shooting up the flights of stairs, taking them in threes. He finally reached his destination, a small rundown apartment with the paint peeling and the walls cracked, but that mattered little to him. The only thing that did matter was what was waiting inside for him, or rather who. Taking a deep breath from the experience he had accumulated over the years, he slowly turned the handle of the door. A red blur shot towards him as fast as it could possibly move, and once again Mito had latched firmly onto him. This was a daily occurrence. It didn't matter how long he had been gone. She was always there to greet him like this, and it made him feel happy. Oni-san, came her cry of happiness. Where did you go this time? Why did you take so long? Did you get the food? Did anybody see you? The questions were shouted so quickly and with such urgency it left her slightly out of breath. Calm down, Mito, he said soothingly. I had to go further into the market today than I usually do. The Sandames had ninja patrolling the areas I usually visit. Do not worry though, nobody saw me. She looked at him with a face full of relief and happiness, before it changed into one of hope and desperation. Before she could even ask the question he knew she would, he answered it. Do not worry, Mito, he said with the faintest of smirks on his face. I have the ramen. She immediately brightened up and sent him a smile bright enough to light the entire village. Arigato, Oni-san. Come, Mito, we have much to do today. You can eat when we are finished. He stated calmly. Her face fell slightly, before she straightened up and put a small smile on her face once again. Hi, Gigi wanted to see us, right? She said happily. His face set itself into a small frown as he thought of his relationship with the Hokage. It had been strenuous for the past 3 years, ever since the incident with his chakra. That is also the reason they now lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment. The orphanage refused to allow them to return, and both were now stuck living in this dump. Hi, I believe Hokage-sama wishes to speak with us about our entrance into the academy. He said slowly, doing his best to keep the emotions out of his voice. Her eyes immediately lit up with excitement and wonder. Yosh, she cried happily, I'm going to be the best ninja ever. And then I'm going to become the best Hokage ever, Databeo. He gave a small smile at her enthusiasm, hiding his own excitement at the thought of furthering his own skills. I know you will, Mito, he thought to himself, I know you will. Hokage's office. The Sandame was sitting in his office enjoying the pleasures of tobacco. It was a slow day in the office, and therefore the paperwork was minimal. He looked towards the pile on the corner of his desk that had been stamped, complete, with a small smirk. Yes, today was a good day. A frown slowly made its way onto his face as he thought about the visitors he was expecting. They would not be happy with the news he had for them. A knock on the door drew his attention away from those thoughts. The chakra was unmistakable. "Speak of the devil," he murmured before clearing his throat. "Enter," he commanded. The door opened, revealing both Mito and Naruto. Mito was short for her age, with blood-red hair that went down to her lower back and sparkling violet eyes. Her bangs were slightly parted with a clip to keep her hair out of her face. She was dressed in baggy black pants that stopped at her ankles with dark blue sandals on her feet. She had 3 distinct whisker-like marks on her face. She wore a red shirt a few shades darker than her hair with a dark orange jacket. Naruto looked the opposite, however, preferring darker or neutral colors. He had on a pair of dark gray pants that went down to his ankles with black sandals on his feet. He wore a black shirt which showed of the impressive muscle he had for an 8-year-old, and over his shirt he wore a very dark red jacket that was almost black in color. His hair had also been grown out. 2 pitch black bangs framed his face, almost going down to his chin, while the rest was a pure white resembling freshly fallen snow. It had been grown out to just below the boy's shoulder blades. The Hokage had always found himself in slight wonderment at the contrast of the 2 colors. But now was not the time. After both gave a small bow, Naruto forced Mito to do so as she seemed too excited to remember the courtesy. He spoke. "Hokage-sama, Mito and I are here on your request. What is it you wish to speak to us about?" The Hokage hid the frown that threatened to appear on his face by interlocking his finger directly in front of his mouth. "He is already so distant, this will simply push him further away, but it is the only option I have." He thought to himself. "Yes, Naruto-kun, as you both know, the academy starts next week Monday. But unfortunately I have some rather upsetting news." Mito looked at the Hokage with confusion etched onto her face. Naruto seemed to have a perfectly emotionless visage in place. But the Hokage did not miss the almost imperceptible narrowing of the boy's eyes. "We will not be allowed entrance." It was not a question. "Unfortunately, Naruto-kun, it is only you who has been barred from the academy. After your incident 3 years ago, the council has seen it prudent to keep their children out of harm's way in the case something like that had to happen again." "What?" Mito shouted, completely outraged at what the old man was saying. "You can't do this to Naruto-kun, Gigi. It's just not fair." "What am, Mito?" Naruto cut her off before she could finish her sentence. His voice was laced with anger which he refused to show on his face. The Hokage had never seen Mito shrink into herself the way she did when admonished by her brother. He put those thoughts at the back of his mind as he shifted his eyes to regard the white-haired boy once again. "Hokage-sama," he said with as much control as he possibly could, "I do not understand the reasons behind this decision. How is it that Mito will be allowed attendance while I am cast aside? To the best of my knowledge, Konoha is a dictatorship, with the Hokage having the final say in all military-related issues." The Hokage withheld a deep sigh from escaping his throat as he steeled himself for the explanation to come. "Naruto-kun," he started slowly, "the problem lies in the fact that this is not a military-related matter, not entirely anyway. While the academy does prepare children for the life of shinobi, it is in the end a school full of children, both from shinobi as well as civilian backgrounds. The civilians are given around 50% power in civilian-related matters, with the Hokage holding the other 50% to preserve the balance. But you are correct in the fact that I control every aspect of the military in this village. The clans may only be called to vote if something is deemed a threat to village safety or our way of life." He could see Naruto was about to interrupt his explanation, so he simply raised his hand to silence the boy and continued. "And while usually it would be possible for the Hokage to usurp any decision made by them, the fact is this problem has never arisen before, and you are only considered a shinobi and part of the military system when you wear the village's headband. Therefore both civilian and shinobi voted on this matter. In the end it was decided you would not be allowed to attend." He could see the thinly veiled anger behind the boy's eyes as he processed the given information. "This still does not explain why I am the only one who will not be allowed to attend, Hokage-sama." He said those words with such distaste that it almost made Sarutobi flinch. "Almost. You are too intelligent for your own good, Naruto," Hiruzen thought to himself. He cleared his throat before he continued. "The council is not allowed to vote on any matters besides the ones that could be considered a threat to the village. They used this loophole to bar your entrance. And in the case of Mito, she has never done something that could be deemed as such. They therefore did not have the power to stop her from attending." "Gigi!" Mito suddenly cried out. Please, you can't do this to Oni-san. He never meant to do that to the orphanage. What am I supposed to do without him there to help me? She had noticeable tears in her eyes and desperation in her voice. The Hokage had steeled his heart to the proceedings. There was only one way out for Naruto, and it was the last thing he wanted to subject the child to. There was something burning behind the child's eyes as he stared Hiruzen with the most chilling look he had ever seen in his time as a shinobi. It was the look of a man who had his dreams ripped away and thrown in his face. If that will be all, Hokage-sama, he said with absolute hatred in his voice. It seems as if his choice had been made for him. He looked towards Mito. Mito-chan, please wait outside my office, he said in a soothing voice. There is something I wish to speak to Naruto about. If he agrees, he may tell you. She looked at her brother with tears threatening to spill as she slowly started her trek out, only to rush to his side and envelope him in a fierce hug. I'm so sorry, Oni-san, she said, finally letting her tears fall. She ran as quickly as she could out the office, knowing her brother's only dream had been all but crushed. He looked towards the Hokage with anger shining in his eyes. He wanted to simply attack the man. The anger that was coursing through his very existence almost made him do so, but he was nothing if not rational and knew nothing would come of it besides a frigid cell and 2 cold meals a day. He opened his mouth to speak, only to be cut off by the Sandame. I know what you are going to say, you do not need to. I know I have failed you once again, Naruto, I am truly sorry for that. But as I have said, in this particular situation I had no control over what has happened. No control? He basically snarled at the Sandame. You're the Hokage. You should have complete control of all the inner workings of the village. What am I? Naruto, the Hokage said in the most serious tone he had ever used on him. These regulations were put in place by the Shodeme and Nidaime Hokages, both of which were my senseis. I hold all their teachings in high regard. These were the 2 that set the entire system for our village, and while there are some flaws in this system that has kept us a cut above the rest. He sighed as he looked upon the boy. His body and posture showed no sign of hostility, but his eyes burned with an anger and rage he had never seen in one so young. It seems as if you would have to allow him the choice. What would you do to become a shinobi, Naruto? He asked suddenly. There was no hesitation as he answered. Anything. And what would you give up? He asked. Everything. Even Mito? This was the question that would determine whether or not he would extend the grapevine. It had the desired effect as it threw the boy off balance. After getting over his surprise, a look of intense conflict appeared on his face. It took him little less than 5 seconds to reach a conclusion. No. The Hokage gave a small smile to the boy and an internal sigh of relief. It seems the child had the right priorities. Very well then, how would you like to join the ANBU, Naruto? What? I thought that he trailed off as he realized what the Hokage was doing. A small smile made its way onto his face as he bowed. It would be my honor, Hokage-sama, he said with true gratitude in his voice. Very well then, Naruto, next week when Mito begins the academy, come to my office. I will see to it you are a registered ANBU by the end of the day. Spoke the Sandame in a kind voice. Thank you for this opportunity, Hokage-sama, I shall do my utmost. Naruto stated. Ah yes, about that, Naruto-kun. Would you care to explain your late-night excursions into the forest? Surely you did not think you could hide such a thing from me. Hiruzen stated with a small amount of smugness in his voice. For the first time he could remember, Naruto found himself unable to respond. He had made absolutely sure no one had followed him, so that begged the question. Just how in the hell did the Hokage know? No need to be so tense, Naruto-kun. I have seen you train yourself into the ground. But the question still stands, why did you not come to me when you discovered this ability of yours? Hiruzen was enjoying the look spread across the boy's face. It was nearly impossible to surprise the boy, let alone make him so flustered, so he took immense pleasure in the few times he was able to garner such a response. Hokage-sama, he started slowly, unsure just how to respond. With all due respect, if anyone were to come to know of my bloodline, I would not only lose the element of surprise, but I would have multiple people out for my head. I have done extensive research on both the bloodline and the clan it once belonged to, and from what I could gather, they were not very well liked. Furthermore, it could call into question my loyalty to the village as a whole. Many people would claim that I am not a born and bred Konoha citizen, and even though I was raised here my whole life, many would accuse me of being a spy. It would have simply caused far too many inconveniences had it become public knowledge. He drew in a long breath after the explanation, not being used to speaking so much at any given time. The Sandaime leant back in his chair and refilled his pipe, mulling over the child's answer. While from the boy's point of view it made sense, as the Hokage he could not let matters like this slide. Such a thing was far too important to the village to be kept a secret. That may be Naruto-kun. But keeping such delicate information from the Hokage is tantamount to treason. The only reason I cannot and will not punish you for this is the simple fact that I am as of yet not your commanding officer. I do however urge you in future, not to keep this sort of thing quiet. Understood? He started off lightly, but the statement at the end was said with the power and force of the village leader. I will be sure to keep your words under consideration, Hokage-sama, Naruto stated, his voice completely neutral. Hiruzen wasn't completely sated, especially by the boy's vague answer. But nonetheless he waved his hand in dismissal. With Mito, she was depressed, there were no other words or phrases that could describe her current emotional turmoil. On one hand, her brother was not going to be a ninja, she couldn't fathom being without him for hours each day, and moreover, his one and only dream had been shattered. She wanted to be a ninja alongside her brother, she just knew they would be the best ninja ever. Suddenly, her head shot up and her tears stopped falling. That's an amazing idea, she shouted as she stood up. What is? As she whipped around with her scream stuck in her throat, she caught sight of her brother. Her face lit up and her surprise was forgotten as she wrapped her arms around him in the fiercest bear hug she could manage. Oni-san, I have the best idea. I'll teach you what I learn from the academy every day when I get home. You'll learn what I learn. Then when I'm Hokage, I'll make you a Junin. He stared at her in slight surprise for the first few seconds after her announcement, watching as her self-satisfied grin stretched further and further. Why does she care so much? He asked himself. Oni-san? She prodded. He snapped out of his surprise and looked Mito dead in the eye. His face was blank and emotionless, but his eyes, she had learned to read him through his eyes a long time ago. He was happy, genuinely happy. He slowly started to wrap his arms around her and in a small and quiet voice filled with emotion whispered to her. Thank you so much. 1 week later, Mito was humming a cheery tune and skipping along the ground as she made her way to the academy. Her brother explained what was happening and how he was to join the ANBU when they had gotten home. Needless to say, she had been happy, although slightly crestfallen that she would not be able to see her brother as much as she wanted. When she asked how it was possible to join the ANBU and yet not the academy, he had explained that it was a division of skilled ninja under direct control of the Hokage, therefore he had the final say in any and all matters regarding them. Thinking back on the day confused her somewhat, as she thought when her brother hugged her like that it was because of her offer to train him, but it seems it wasn't. Although that didn't really matter anymore, she had felt so happy when he hugged her like that, she had sworn to herself to find out why he did so. Her thoughts were cut off as the bell rang. Oh no, I'm gonna be late on my first day. She immediately shot up to find class 302A and it was only 10 minutes later when she did so. With Naruto, the Sandaime watched the boy with a careful eye as he greeted him and bowed. He was still not entirely sure this was the best course of action, but it was the only one available, he reminded himself. Naruto-kun, it's good to see you my boy, he said with the faintest of smiles on his face. He glanced over at Tiger who was standing to his direct right, knowing he would catch his intentions. He stepped forward and cleared his throat. Naruto Uzumaki, it has come to my attention that the Hokage wishes to enroll you as a trainee in the ANBU and as such you will become my responsibility to train. Know that this is the highest honor a shinobi can receive, and if it were not for your previous self-imposed training you would not even be considered for such prestige. The boy bowed his acknowledgement. Very well, Tiger said, there is still one more thing for us to discuss. And that would be? The boy asked with a slight raise of his eyebrow. This training will be unlike any you can imagine. You will be pushed beyond your breaking point. Your stamina will mean all but nothing. There will be no breaks, no mercy, and certainly no pity from any of us. Your chakra will be next to non-existent at the end of each day. Your bones will snap and you will have to carry on. Question being, are you ready for this? Tiger said with a heavy voice. A small grin stretched its way across the boy's face. Tiger-san, I am more than ready. I'm excited. It was amazing really, the grace with which he moved, seemingly gliding from one opponent to another as water would around stone. It was akin to the sweetest melody he had ever heard, or ever would. It was so surreal, watching as his death moved ever forward. A katana cut towards the monster's neck at that moment, and ever so easily did he move, just far enough for the tip to pass his neck. A strand of hair would have had a hard time fitting between, and another of his men fell. It came too late, the realization that he was just standing there, waiting for his death. And only when his chest suddenly flared in pain did he understand that it didn't matter, even had he run, he would have still perished. He turned his head slightly to look at the others who stood dispassionately watching him, seemingly without a care in the world. The one cocked his head to the side, as if asking what was wrong. He tried to chuckle, but it came out as more of a rueful cough. He died silently. Tiger cocked his head to the side as he watched the man die, impaled by a sword as he was. His newest recruit had performed admirably, and had his support and recommendation. Directive 7. He ordered softly, as he watched the 4 other soldiers under his command move to dispose of the bodies. He slowly wandered over to the small form of the child who had just killed a man 10 years his senior. The blank masked had turned to him before he could speak. Is it always this easy? Tiger considered these words. He had learned to suppress any guilt long ago. He would be driven mad otherwise. It shouldn't be, not for one so young, although your training demands otherwise. The child nodded slowly, as a hand moved up to grip his heart. I feel something, but that isn't what I'm asking. He felt a bit of relief at that, but also confusion. Then what do you mean? The blank mask slowly moved back to the body at its feet. Why does life slip away so quickly? The question was asked softly, but his entire team paused to listen to the child's words. Is this really all there is to life? Kill or be killed, and to forever live with the guilt that you were the one to survive? Tiger stayed silent at that. Realizing the child was talking to himself at that moment, his team went back to work, as he stood silently watching the child come to terms with what he'd done. Report, the third Hokage ordered softly, as he sensed a multitude of chakra signatures shunshin into his office. Hokage-sama, Tiger bowed, mission complete. Hiruzen nodded, secondary objective? Tiger shifted his gaze to the small form with the blank mask. Successful, new recruit is fit for duty. With your authorization and my recommendation he may start next week. Very well, Sarutobi nodded as he turned his attention to the small form of the child. Report in Monday at 700 hours for your first official assignment. He made a motion with his hand, and he flickered out of sight, along with the rest of his agents, all but Tiger. He sighed softly as he leaned into his chair and pulled his pipe from his desk, slowly filling it with tobacco. How is he? He asked as he lit the pipe and inhaled. He exceeded my expectations, Hokage-sama. Tiger answered. That is to be expected, but you know that wasn't what I asked you. The third grimaced slightly as he addressed one of his best agents. The ANBU nodded slowly. He seemed shaken, sir, but I expected much more of a reaction than I received. Hiruzen slowly closed his eyes. Keep an eye on him, monitor his reactions to any and all kills that follow. Make sure we aren't creating a monster. Tiger inclined his head. I understand, Hokage-sama. He moved silently over the rooftops, ever closer to his destination. He was filled with elation as he moved his hand over his smooth mask, unmarred and plain, a simple thing not at all like the one he'd receive upon his official indoctrination into the ANBU Special Forces. He moved it off his face and into his cloak, only to reveal emerald green eyes that shone with fulfillment. He'd finally done it. He was finally ready to move on, finally strong enough to be a shinobi. His thoughts came to a halt as he reached the roof of Konoha's academy, where he knew they were practicing taijutsu. It seemed he was just in time to, as a small form with red hair wandered into the ring, followed closely by a raven-haired boy with the crest of the Uchiha on his back. You better get ready, Sasuke. Mito exclaimed with a raised fist, a fire burning in her eyes. I'm gonna kick your ass again today. The raven-haired youth scoffed as he moved into his family's fighting stance. Please, Uzumaki, as if you could? A smirk made its way onto his face as he gauged her reaction. Even with his words, he knew not to underestimate her. Mito surged forward, fist raised and ready to unleash a devastating punch. That's not what you were saying last week when your face was buried in the dirt. She threw the punch. Sasuke knew better, however, as he moved forward and blocked the kick that flew toward his face in the wake of the punch, merely a feint. The jab he sent in retaliation clipped her left shoulder, But before he could capitalize, her hands had moved up to grab his wrist. As she turned and used the momentum to flip him over her shoulder, he landed on his feet, at a very uncomfortable angle nearly horizontal to the ground. He saw her smirk as she twisted. He refused to cry out from the pain as his wrist bent unnaturally, and in a feat of incredible strength and dexterity he pulled himself towards her. Ignoring her look of surprise and the flare of pain it brought him as he curled his body and sent his knee toward her face. It connected, but not as solidly as he would have liked. Instead of the satisfying crunch of a broken nose, he heard a small grunt as his knee impacted her chin. She released him swiftly and moved back with the blow, trying to reduce the damage by moving with the momentum of his hit. They stared each other down in silence after that. His wrist was throbbing and he could see the grimace on her face. He was panting quite hard, while Mito didn't seem that tired, but she was disorientated from the blow. He moved quickly, knowing this might be his best chance at ending the fight swiftly. She moved sluggishly as she attempted to block his punch, sent desperately without his usual finds. It closed in quickly and hit her solidly on the cheek. He was about to smirk, until he felt his breath leave him as they both stumbled back, Mito dropping her knee she had brought up into his stomach at the last second. It was all they could do to keep standing. They were about to go back at it when they were called by their sensei, declaring it a tie. Iruka shook his head as he watched his two best students practically tear into the other. He knew they respected one another. Both being at the top of the class, one would hold the spot for a week or two, before the other would take their place. He winced slightly as Sasuke buried his fist in the girl's face, and her knee sank deeper than looked comfortable into his diaphragm. "That's enough," he called out just as they were about to get back into it. "It's a tie." Sasuke looked put out, and Mito pouted, but both moved towards him as he smiled. "Well done. The both of you did very well, but can you tell me what you did wrong?" The girl scratched the back of her head with a grin. "I thought Sasuke wouldn't be able to move once I got him over my shoulder. I underestimated him." The teacher nodded happily and looked over at the Uchiha, who was looking anywhere but at him. "I moved in recklessly thinking she was defenseless. I dropped my guard and paid the price." He rubbed his tender stomach, looking put out at having to admit it. Iruka smiled brightly at his most promising students. "Very good. Remember, admitting your faults is the first step in fixing them." Mito nodded enthusiastically and Sasuke gave a curt nod. He smiled as they moved away and he called the next pair. "Your sister is very skilled." He tried his best not to stiffen at those words, so suddenly said as a figure moved next to him. He knew it was noticed though. "So is your brother." He inclined his head slightly. This man was an ANBU captain after all. "Did you train her?" he asked in a soft voice, a small current of interest in his voice. "I gave her some pointers." "I see." They stood silently, one not knowing what to say and the other being perfectly fine with saying nothing. They stood watching the sparring for a while. When Iruka had called an end to the class, the man turned his attention to the child, only 10 years old and already in the ANBU corps. "You have been drafted into my squad, Naruto-kun. I will meet you at the Hokage's office at the given time." "Hi, Taiko," he bowed slightly. With that, Uchiha Itachi, recognized as one of the strongest shinobi in the village, disappeared with barely a flicker of movement. Mito hummed a happy tune as she exited the gates of the school. She had kept her lead against Sasuke after all. She still had a lead of 2 matches, she wasn't willing to let that number dwindle. Her face lit up in happiness as she caught sight of her brother, bounding over to him and wrapping him up in a hug. "Oni-san," she cried happily, "I missed you today. Guess what? I beat up Sasuke again." She emphasized this point by making a fist and sending out a quick jab. He smiled softly at her as they turned a corner. She carried on talking, relaying every detail of the fight and all the highlights of her day, talking about anything that came to mind. Yes, he decided, today was a good day. His eyes shot open as the clock flipped to 6 a.m. Moving methodically, he straightened his sheets as he prepared for the day. He let his mind wander as he walked out of the small room. Turning to the door on his right, he rapped his knuckles twice against the door. He stood for a few moments, there was no answer. A sigh escaped his lips as he moved further down the hall. Opening the door, he moved into the bathroom, turning on his shower. Moving under the hot water was a relief. He felt so dirty, and the 3 showers he had had the day before hadn't helped in the least. Looking upon his hands in regret, his mind slowly moved to the event from the day before. He had killed, blood now stained his hands and his soul. A few tears blended with the water running down his face. He shook his head to rid himself of these thoughts. No, this is the path I chose, I cannot go back now. He shook his head ruefully as a chuckle escaped his lips. He fell to his knees. Why does it have to be like this, why do? There was a sharp knock on the door, breaking him from his thoughts. Oni-san, hurry up. He stood quickly, shaking his head as he turned the water of. Be patient, Mito, I am almost done. His voice was soft, but he knew he was heard by the scoff he received in return. A small smile made its way onto his face. He had reached the sink now, brushing his teeth to a rhythm only he could understand. His other hand slowly moved towards his fringe, lifting the hair out of the way. 2 small protrusions were visible. He touched the tip of one softly, staring at it through his own reflection. Grimacing softly. If the villagers were to see these. He let his hair fall back into place, not wanting to continue that thought. He didn't know why they were growing, and he was much too worried to ask. Oni-san, the voice was desperate now. Hi, he spoke as he let his hair cover the bumps once again. He'd only just opened the door when he was pushed out into the hall and the door slammed in his face. It seemed she really was desperate. Not 10 minutes later he had a simple breakfast with rice and fish sitting in front of him, the other waiting for his sister, who slowly strolled into the dining area, dressed casually and still drying her hair. Morning, Ni-san, her words came sleepily. She had yet to fully wake. He wanted to shake his head at that. Ninja were supposed to be able to move from sleep to conciseness in an instant. He knew, however, that she had not been trained for that yet. Good morning, Mito, he replied as she flopped into her chair and broke her chopsticks, ready to dig in, until a spoon smacked her right in the middle of her forehead. Itai, she moaned pitifully, giving her brother a pout. Manners, he spoke insistently. She groaned but clapped her hands together. Itadakimasu, Mito cried before diving into the food. He shook his head. Honestly, she would be lost without me, figuratively and literally. She had the worst sense of direction he'd ever seen. With the simple affair of breakfast over, and after he'd forced Mito to do the dishes, he moved towards the door with wallet in hand. Oni-san, where you going? She was staring at him speculatively, almost as if accusing him of something. He sighed. Mito, I need to acquire high-grade weaponry. I have been commissioned a check from the Hokage to make these purchases. Her eyes lit up at his explanation, and a shiver ran down his spine. How much can you spend? She asked with a gleam in her eye. As much as I need, he said hesitantly. Her face lit up with enough energy to power Konoha and its neighboring towns. Then you're buying me new clothes. He wasn't able to respond as he was dragged out the door by a vice grip around his wrist. Meeting place, unknown location. His foot tapped the ground expectantly. He was irritated and moody, with better things to do with his time. Although the meeting was about a very important subject, it was a simple status update. Surely this could have waited, and the least his contact could have done was arrive on time. The tapping of a cane against stone let him know his company had arrived. He stood as the door opened, knowing he was once again going to have to play politics. Danzo-san, it is good to see you have made it. Danzo moved to the other end of the table, far too slowly in his opinion. And it is good to be here, Fugaku. The man spoke evenly as he sat, not an ounce of inflection present in his voice. Now then, I am to understand you had some important matters to discuss with me? Fugaku spoke with a small amount of disdain, letting his business partner know just how much he appreciated being kept waiting. Indeed, everything is moving along smoothly, no problems have arisen and I expect it to stay that way. What of your end, Fugaku? The man grunted at that, obviously pleased with his words. The clan is prepared. No objections, we may proceed. Excellent, Danzo remarked. What of Itachi? Fugaku would have cringed if it wouldn't make him look weak. He loved his son, truly he did. But he had betrayed the clan. The Hokage's informant is being fed false information. He believes the clan will only be ready to move in a year, giving the old man hope that peace may still be bargained for. Danzo nodded his head. Very well, we mobilize in 2 months. Fugaku shot to his feet. What? 2 months? Surely you jest? The bandaged man smiled mockingly at him. Don't forget, Fugaku, you came to me, believing me to be your best chance at victory. And while I support you now, if you were to back out of the agreement, the Hokage might just find a very incriminating piece of evidence on his desk in the very near future. The old man gave him an oily smile. Fugaku had to take a few deep breaths after hearing this. Knowing he was backed into a corner, he slowly sat, nodding his head slightly. "We will be ready." Danzo leaned forward, his face expressionless once more. "Make sure that you are with Naruto. And that's why I needed 3 smoke bombs, a goldfish and a jar of peanut butter," Mito exclaimed. "The thought process she possesses truly frightens me." He decided not to comment on this though. Seeing her self-satisfied grin made him realize nothing he could say would get through to her. "You do realize," he began slowly, "that all costs incurred will be forwarded to me once I have been paid." Mito smiled again. "All the more reason to spend it. I need new clothes anyway. My old ones are kinda falling apart." She rubbed the back of her head sheepishly, knowing it was true, and he could only thank the heavens that she wasn't like other girls in their seemingly rabid need to be in possession of the newest styles. "Very well, we may as well purchase a set of kunai and shuriken." "Really?" Her eyes sparkled as he nodded. "You're the best, Oni-san." They had reached the weapons shop at this point. He strode in calmly while Mito bounded in as quickly as possible, moving up to look at the many different types of weapons. He marveled at the sheer scale of the store. With every sweep of his eyes, his form became more obvious. This was an expensive place. A rough hand landed on his shoulder. Of course he had known it was coming, but having deduced the owner was no threat, decided to hold off on removing it. "How ya there, son? You come looking for some kunai?" The man had a jovial tone about his voice, and he could see the shock in his face as he turned towards him. He was surprised, however, when he received a smile once the shock had faded. He was an average-looking man, nothing remarkable in any way, someone who could blend in any crowd, with brown hair thrown into a messy hairstyle, brown eyes that sparkled with childish delight. The man was the epitome of normal but not forgettable. "So then, what can I get for Yagaki?" The mont's deep but playful voice brought him back to reality. Deeming him no threat to his or Mito's safety, he answered, "I have come to acquire the basic stock of weaponry, class 4 inches." The man stared at him in shock. "Y'all really a shinobi?" he asked with a hint of doubt. Naruto's response was to simply hand the man the check from the Hokage. The poor man's eyes seemed as if they'd pop out of his head. "I see," he said, softly scratching at the stubble on his chin. "Well then, I'd best be getting your stuff together. Have a look around and see if anything catches your eye." He gave the boy a small smile, obviously still quite shocked, and received a nod in return. The man moved into a back room behind the counter as Naruto strode off, looking for anything interesting. A few katana caught his eye, but not only would it take years to master such a weapon, it didn't feel quite right in his hands. He sighed as he set a pair of sai down, wondering if he'd ever acquire a weapon that suited his style flawlessly. There would be no exceptions in that regard. He'd need something he could use practically and easily hidden, something that would not hinder him in tight spaces or slow him down in the open. He placed his hand on a bow staff, giving it a twirl before once again striking it from the list. Much too large, of course he would still try them out. Even if he kept it in a ceiling scroll most of the time, he'd been in need of a weapon that was perfect for him, even if it went against his desire to be able to use it in tight spaces, as long as it felt right. A scream of youth violently jerked him from his thoughts, as a man in a green spandex one-piece burst through doors of the establishment, followed closely by a man with silver hair and a face mask, slouched lazily with an orange book in his hands. "Guy, calm down, you're scaring the children." The man languidly motioned towards the spot where he stood, staring wide-eyed at this shinobi. Indeed, the flag jacket marked him as one. The man appeared before him in an instant, nothing more than a blur as he approached. "Ah, forgive me, I was merely enjoying the overflowing youth of our village." The man all but screamed. Naruto nodded dumbly at the man, not knowing quite what to say. A smile broke out that covered almost the entirety of his face. "My name is Maida Guy, the youthful green beast of Konoha." Naruto twitched slightly at that. This was Konoha's supreme master of taijutsu? He tried to smile, but it was more of a grimace, and inclined his head slightly. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Maida-san." "Don't mind him." The silver-haired man was standing beside Guy now, calmly reading his book while giving half his attention to the child in front of him. "You're Naruto, right?" He wasn't very surprised at being recognized. It was nothing new after all. "That is correct." He lowered his head once again, and received an upwards turn of the eye as the man snapped his book shut and slid it into his pocket. My name is Kakashi Hitaki, and my friend here has already introduced himself. Naruto stood rigid at this, not believing that he had the luck to run into two of Konoha's elite Junin. Their reputation certainly preceded them. Yosh! Guy screamed, it warms my heart to see such youthful excitement. He cast his gaze over to where Guy was staring, and noticed Mito was doing her best impression of a hyperventilating squirrel, staring at a pack of explosive tags with a pair of nunchaku in her hand, seemingly unable to decide between the two. She eventually grabbed both, and headed towards him, no doubt wanting to ask for both, and froze when she saw Guy giving her a massive grin. Oni-san, she called as she turned to him, a pervert is trying to seduce me. Sick M. Kakashi chuckled and Guy looked absolutely terrified, gaping like a fish while looking to Kakashi for support, which came not from the silver-haired man but the white-haired boy. Mito, show some respect, that is Maida Guy, an expert in taijutsu and one of the strongest ninja in the village. Mito seemed shocked, and Guy's face lit up once more, glad his talents were appreciated. Yosh! He cried, it is truly youthful to be recognized by this generation's youth. The man was so excitable, how did he even become a shinobi? Mito tuned him out, probably trying to preserve her sanity, and turned towards her brother. Oni-san. She thrust the exploding tags and nunchaku his way, can I get these? She asked, seemingly radiating happiness. Only the nunchaku, he told her with a firm gaze. She opened her mouth to protest, but it died when he glared at her. She huffed and turned away, moving to put the tags where she had found them. Quite an interesting sibling you have there, Kakashi noted. Youthful, agreed Guy. Your praise is appreciated, he said and dipped his head in thanks. Kakashi waved him of as Guy smiled and moved back to the counter. The clerk had just emerged from the back. Takumi-san, I have come to acquire new weapons for my most youthful practice. Guy once again gave a megawatt smile, and the clerk seemed to slump at the sight of the man. I'll be right with you, Guy-san. Just putting through that young man's purchase, he gestured to where Naruto and Mito were standing, the latter having joined him a few moments ago after putting the tags away. He noticed the nunchaku in her hand. Ya buying that too? He punched in a few numbers when he got a nod in response, handing over the pouch filled with the basic requirements of ANBU. Basic Class 4 equipment, 24 kunai, 32 shuriken, 10 meters of high-quality weaved ninja wire, 5 explosive tags and 3 smoke bombs. Plus the nunchaku comes to 16,000 ryo. He filled out a small piece of paper from behind the counter, writing the referral number on the check Naruto had given him. He'd be paid in full by the end of the week. Before handing the slip of paper back to the boy. Anything catch your eye, kid? He asked with a smirk, but frowned when he saw the child shaking his head. Unfortunately not, nothing seems to quite fit, Naruto replied. Well, let me know what ya need then. The man leaned forward over the counter. My pride as a blacksmith ain't no small thing, ya know. The man spoke firmly. Naruto nodded his head in response. I'll inform you if anything catches my eye. The man nodded resolutely. I'll smith it myself if it don't exist. He tapped his fist to his heart. My pride's on the line after all. He'd handed Guy a package and punched in the numbers all while speaking with the boy, staring at him seriously. Naruto dipped his head. You shall be the first to know. Takumi nodded his head firmly. I best be, before giving him a smile and waving him off. He was approaching the door with his sister when Guy appeared in front of them, startling them both. Yosh! He cried, may I ask how you plan to learn the youthful art of nunchaku, Mito-san? Mito stared at him warily. My ni-san will teach me, right? She asked as she turned to him for confirmation. He sighed and shook his head. I do not know how to wield nunchaku, Mito. She looked absolutely crestfallen as Guy's grin widened. Yosh! To the training ground, he shouted as he darted off, nothing more than a blur, leaving two very confused children in his wake. He wants you to follow him, Kakashi spoke with a sigh. Come on. He snapped his book open once more and started leading the children to Guy's usual haunt. 10 minutes later, they walked into training ground 8 to an incredible sight. Guy was in a handstand doing vertical push-ups, screaming about youth and doing 100 laps around the village. Maybe more terrifying than incredible. Naruto cast a glance to Kakashi, who was doing his best to ignore the man's antics, while Mito seemed ready to run. Yosh! Guy's bellow was much louder than when they were in the shop, Perhaps that was his indoor voice. Mito-san, join me so we may kindle our flames of youth into a burning passion of youthful vigor. She stared at the man, completely terrified as she turned her head to Kakashi, hoping for a translation. The man sighed once more. He wants to train you to use those, he clarified as he pointed to the nunchuka. He may look dull, but he's probably one of the best taijutsu users in the world, and when he brings his nunchaku out. The man trailed off and shivered. While Naruto slightly relaxed at this, Mito seemed to shrink in on herself. Do I really have to? She whimpered and glanced at her brother. He shook his head, much to her obvious relief. I suppose if you never want to surpass me, then refusing training with one of Konoha's elite Junin is the best way to go about it. He spoke flippantly, as if it really wasn't a hassle. And a fire lit in Mito's eyes. I'll show you, she shouted and ran towards Guy. That was a mean trick, Kakashi chuckled, but effective. Even if Guy isn't the most sane of people, he knows what he is doing. Naruto nodded just as a loud "Yosh" filled the air. With Guy seemingly having explained something to Mito. He put his thumb up and smiled wide. A beam of light seemed to bounce off his teeth and flashed into the eyes of an unsuspecting bird that was flying past, blinding the animal, which flew into a tree and broke its neck. After a pleasant weekend, Monday was bound to roll around, and Naruto found himself standing in the office of his cage. Tiger stood to the man's right, being one of his most trusted guards. He stood at attention beside Weasel and a group of 15 shinobi. The Hokage took a long pull from his pipe, savoring the taste of tobacco and mint, before heaving a sigh in their direction. Team Delta, Commander Weasel, his tone was sharp and authoritative. His men snapped into salutes and stood before him. You have been issued a mission to the border of Kiri and Konoha. The fighting has escalated and they are in need of reinforcements. Do you accept? His tone was daring, almost as if he wanted someone to refuse, just to show the others the consequences. Weasel took a step forward, and bowed deeply to his cage. Team Delta will accept the mission, Hokage-sama. The old man nodded in approval, handing over a small scroll, and waved of the men standing before him. Dismissed. There was a flicker of movement and they were gone. Naruto reappeared in the ANBU base, making his way towards his commander's office. Seeing that he was the last to arrive, he silently took his place among his comrades, at attention before his commander. This mission has a minimum requirement of 2 months active leave. Weasel began. It's off the books, with only the Hokage and higher-ups in the know. We are to defend the borders from a force of an estimated 200 Kiri nin. No one is to know where you are going. Questions? A woman to the right of Naruto stepped forward. Sir, I was not aware we were having skirmishes with Kiri. Why now, and why is it classified? Itachi nodded at the woman. It's been kept of the books by Hokage-sama. A team on patrol was found slaughtered a few months back near the border. A team was sent in for diplomatic purposes, but after 3 weeks and no contact, we moved a team of ANBU into Kiri. Their bodies were found hung in a public square, with their eyes gouged out and fecal matter spread over the bodies. The fist of the woman next to him tightened dangerously, and everyone could feel the ki leaking from her. Hi, when do we leave? Her voice was frozen. You have an hour to prepare. Meet at the west gate. Weasel waved his hand in a dismissive gesture. And remember, no one knows where you are going. He received salutes from the entire squad, before they flickered out of sight. Naruto. He opened the door to his house silently. It was early morning and Mito should be at the academy. He sighed as he realized he wouldn't be that lucky. Hey, Oni-san. Mito waved at him lazily, still in her sleeping clothes and seated at the table, playing with her breakfast. Shouldn't you be at school, Mito? He asked a bit desperately, not really wanting to put up with her antics. Hi, I just wanted to hear how it went. He nearly sighed. She wouldn't like this. I have been deployed. I leave in an hour. Seriously? She inquired. That was fast. She yawned here, and looked totally uninterested. So how long till you to get back? 2 months, he spoke quickly, knowing what was coming. She nodded her head in acceptance, before her eyes shot open and she sprung to her feet. 2 months. What the hell? Why are you go? Mito, she was cut off sharply. It is the order of the Hokage. He spoke softly, hoping to calm her. She slammed her hands on the table. Where the hell are you going for 2 months? She asked desperately. I cannot tell you. His answer seemed to infuriate her further, as she got up and moved towards the door. Come on, We're going to speak to the Hokage about this. She had a fire in her eyes. Mito, his voice was low, and could have cut diamonds with its sharp intensity. She recoiled as if he had physically struck her, staring at him in shock. Oni-san? She asked slowly, unsure of what to say to her brother that was giving her such a cold look. I have been deployed, he stated simply. Not only would going to the Hokage now make me look bad, it also paints a bad picture for any commander you may serve under in future. Insubordination is a black mark in any shinobi's dossier. She nodded slowly, not used to her brother when he was like this. She took a deep, shaking breath. Okay. She stared at him seriously now. I understand. He nodded as he moved toward his room, planning to pack everything into a bag and then seal it into the scroll that was commissioned to him. His sister followed him, probably trying to spend as much time with him as she could before he left. He smiled softly. He would miss her. 5 hours later. They had been running for a while now. There was a palpable tension in the air and weary glances were cast his way, obviously uncomfortable and weary of his presence. The fact that he was so young garnered the attention of most. Captain Weasel called a halt to the proceedings, sending 5 men to set up a perimeter and keep watch, before turning his attention to him. Tomorrow we continue southeast for approximately 2 days, whereupon we shall reach the border of fire and water. Be prepared, for you shall see the cruelty of humanity. If Naruto was confused by these words, he didn't show it. With Mito, the school day had just ended. Sitting through these boring lectures was beginning to fray her nerves. She honestly couldn't wait for the academy to end, so she could become a real shinobi. Just like her brother. That thought caused her to frown further, despite the state in which he returned every night, namely, bloody and exhausted. She couldn't help but feel slight envy that he was being trained by such a well-respected group as the ANBU. Of course, he was never allowed to tell her just what that training entailed. It irked her somewhat, knowing he was advancing so quickly while she was left behind. But she knew these thoughts were petty. He had joined the Black Ops unit out of necessity, not choice, and he had helped her greatly with her taijutsu and chakra control, allowing her to contend for first place against Uchiha Sasuke. A talented boy with a fan club a mile long, she'd imagine it would be the same for her, if not for one simple fact. Kyuubi. The thought of the great beast sealed within her navel brought a shiver down her spine. That night she had spoken to the beast, was one she would never forget. Despite offering to strike a deal with her, it had been entirely vague as to what that deal would entail. And even more evasive with the facts of the night it was sealed, saying things like, "You will find out when ready," or, "I do not wish to break your pitiful mind with things beyond your comprehension." So in other words, it was just blowing hot air and insulting her. She wouldn't be surprised if it was just lying to get out of its cage and had proceeded to tell it such. It had laughed at her. Laughed. And she would never forget its words, said with such assurance and pity she sometimes wondered if it would have been best to accept the deal. The day will come, the day you will need my power the most. And on this day it will be denied, for if you cannot listen to mere words, how will you ever hear the call of your own anguish? She had woken suddenly after that, with her brother beside her and her heart racing. She would never consider that a dream. It made far too much sense and it was far too real to be anything but reality. But those words would haunt her for many years. Hiruzen. He sat, staring out at the village. The village he had sacrificed so much for, the village that had taken his wife and child, and the village that spat on the memory of its heroes. Despite all this, he loved it with his whole heart, the children playing in the streets while the parents watched over with a smile, the market writhing with activity and shouts of people selling their wares. This is what made the village what it was, so peaceful and ignorant, so happy to go about their lives while the shinobi died, while other villages were slaughtered en masse. He briefly wondered if this was how Hashirama had envisioned the future. He knew the man's dream was to make sure every child had a decent childhood, without death and violence. He had wanted to spread this philosophy over the world. But after all that work, things hadn't changed much. If anything, death had just become more organized. He sighed at that, knowing these dark thoughts did nothing. Despite having taken so much, he was still willing to give what was left to the village he loved. The next day, they has just finished resting. The camp was covered and their passing untraceable. The shifting of his comrades did not escape his attention. Most were still casting glances his way. Besides the captain, not a single person had spoken to him. He didn't care much, however. He wasn't here to make friends. He would have welcomed a conversation, but it wasn't immediately necessary. Their captain spoke with a dragon-masked agent, their words unheard to the rest of the group. Before nodding as the man fell back into line. "We have just received word that one of our outlying bases we have stationed in Kiri has been attacked. I plan to double our pace and reach the shore by midnight. After which a small barge will pick us up on shore and take us to one of the islands where the main base is located. This will also be your only rest until we reach camp." Questions? He received none. AMD They were sprinting through the trees a moment later. Undisclosed location. "How are the troops faring, AOU?" A woman with ankle-length red hair queried. "Most demoralized, May-sama. The recent losses have caused many to question whether it is still possible to win this war." A man with a spiky blue mane and an eye patch over his left eye spoke. The woman sighed, feeling no need to comment. She had guessed as much already, but one could always hope. "Very well, order the men to hold position. We cannot lose that factory." "Are you sure that is wise, May-sama?" "Surely there. Aoi, do as I say." "Hi, May-sama. Team Delta." They had just recently disembarked from their 3-hour-long trip across the waters of Kiragakiru. They had wasted many hours traversing the vast waters around the nation, but it was unavoidable, as even Junin-level ninja tire after a few hours of water walking. They needed to be fresh and prepared once they reach land, as there's no telling what could happen between that and the base. Itachi had spoken with the team, encouraging them to be more accepting of his presence, pointing out that he had also been young in age when he joined the Black Ops. This had at least stopped the glances, but still no one approached him. They were perhaps 5 minutes away from base, or at least if the continuous twitching of his captain's hands were to be believed. Breaking through the last of the foliage, they came across a few tents spread over easily evacuated points, with perhaps 10 men guarding the perimeter. He said nothing as they approached a nondescript tree, seemingly one of many, but with a wave of his hands and a few muttered words the captain had dispersed the illusion over the true entrance. A simple trapdoor that led underground, wide enough for only 2 people walk side by side. He knew there must have been more exits, as this was more than likely the least defended, for if any enemies were to come this way, limited movement would allow the shinobi inside to attack with a simple fire technique, made all the more powerful by the narrow walkway. It opened up and his suspicions were confirmed. 2 shinobi snapped to attention upon seeing his captain. Or at least he assumed they did. They were walking side by side in pairs of 2, with the captain bringing up the front, so he couldn't actually see, being second last as he was. They continued until the room opened further, allowing them to spread out and be welcomed by the 30 or so shinobi that were present. Weasel had ordered them to rest, before being whisked off behind locked doors, which he assumed to be the command and intelligence room. His team was led of without much fanfare. They were told they would spend the night in a room that housed 4, although by the size of it, it would be a close fit. He was actually impressed by the base. A powerful Earth-style user must have carved it out. And looking around the small room in which sat 2 other men and 1 woman, he knew that comfort was not in mind when the place was made. There was tense silence in the air, more than likely due to his presence. He couldn't blame them though, he was an unknown. And in this world, unknowns tend to get you killed. There was shifting from the horse-masked man in the corner opposite his, before he seemed to come to a decision and slowly reached up to remove his mask. His face was average, forgettable and common, more than likely used to his advantage. He smiled disarmingly, but there was an unmissable bitterness as spoke. Name's Koga Hachiro, Gaki. He placed the mask by his side and shifted around, trying to get some level of comfort against the stone wall. The woman moved next, slowly sliding her cat mask off her face as she turned to him. Azuki Yugo, she inclined her head towards him. The man to his right seemed hesitant, and after the mask was removed he understood why. Most of his face had been burned away by a fire technique. A grotesque smile seemed to be permanently plastered to the right half of his face. Mamoru, the man rasped. It seemed he'd taken a breath from whatever technique was launched at him. He slowly moved his hand to his own mask, slowly sliding off the design of a hawk. This moment would decide whether or not they could work as a cohesive unit. Uzumaki Naruto. His voice was soft as he revealed his face to the others. Mamoru's hand moved to his face as he rubbed his cheek. Where he got it wasn't much of a mystery anymore. Koga seemed genuinely shocked. Yugo had tilted her head as she scrutinized him, and the burning gaze of Mamoru seemed to bore into his skull. but it was surprisingly the scarred man that spoke first. "Called it," he spoke quietly as Koga handed him a tidy sum of money. Yugo made no move as she continued to stare, and Koga seemed put out on having to part with his money. Naruto stared quizzically at the man. "You bet on my identity?" The man smiled at him, although it seemed to be more of a grimace on his scarred face. "I don't pass up free money, kid. You suddenly drop off the radar a few years back, and now we got a new recruit that was either a midget or a prodigy. Wasn't too hard to figure out." He nodded slowly, surprised that he was receiving no animosity from these people. Yugo seemed to pick up on his thoughts as she spoke. "We hold no spite for what you contain. We all knew the fourth personally, and thinking his seal anything less than perfection would be an insult to his memory." Naruto nodded again. He never understood the seemingly godlike reputation the fourth had garnered. He was just a man, a dead man. He knew that he was supposedly one of the best shinobi of the last 100 years, but the devotion shown by most was unnerving. Koga smiled. "Since we're all going to be working together, why don't we tell each other our fields of expertise? If only for the Gaki's sake." Yugo nodded. "I specialize in kenjutsu and close-quarter combat. I know a few fire-style techniques and have basic Tier 2 ceiling knowledge." Mamoru spoke next. "I specialize in strategy and earth-style ninjutsu." Koga smiled as he continued. "I've got some impressive lightning-style ninjutsu, and I'm one of the best genjutsu users in the village." He spoke as he rubbed his thumb under his nose, obviously proud of his skills. "I am a close-quarter specialist, focusing on taijutsu. I also possess a single A-rank wind-style jutsu with 5 supplementary B ranks." The others wore impressed faces, obviously not expecting someone so young to be able to use such a powerful food and jutsu. "Well then," Koga nodded, "best to get some sleep. I have a feeling we only have a few hours." They all nodded and tried to get as comfortable as possible against the hard stone, weary and anxious for the days to come. 1 week later. It had been far too quiet for Naruto's taste. The tension was mounting and he felt like he was about to snap. Thankfully the captain seemed to notice he and the other 3 had formed something of a bond over the last few days, and he was deployed with people he knew he could count on to have his back. Koga seemed to be a go-with-the-flow type of guy. Mamoru was stern and unwavering in his devotion to the village. But it was hard getting a lock on Yugo's feelings. She seemed high-strung and anxious, and he doubted it had anything to do with the mission, or at least not directly. They were currently patrolling one of the smaller islands, just south of the main island of Kiri. There had been no word on the base that was attacked. It seemed the higher-ups were keeping things from them. Mamoru stilled suddenly, causing the others to come to a stop. "Enemies. 10 feet." He was using ANBU hand code, 2 clicks west, ETA 3 minutes. They dove out the way and began laying traps. The order had come down just yesterday that tension was high between the villages. Lethal force was authorized. Naruto could hear his heart pumping, his hands were shaking and his body was trembling. "What's happening?" he questioned himself. His thoughts were cut off as a muffled thud was heard. A small group of shinobi had landed in the clearing. The obvious captain, for he strutted about as if he was nobility, moved toward the tree line. "We know we're here." He grinned. A sickly sight to behold, yellowing teeth and ugly face compounding this fact. "How about ya just come on OU?" His voice cut off as he took a step forward and the ground shook beneath their feet. Blood flew from the center of the blast and rained upon the clearing. Naruto took off, moving as fast as he could. He managed to slit the throats of 2 other men before they had regrouped. His heart pumped and his legs moved. His mind seemed to float away from him, this feeling. He was brought back to reality by a kunai narrowly missing his neck. His own blade ripping the mon's throat out in turn. He twisted as he heard footsteps behind him. A man was moving through hand seals in a desperate gamble, one that did not pay off when Kat's sword pierced his heart. His gaze swept over to Mamoru, his right arm hanging limp and defending himself against 2 men. His body moved before he could stop it. A single bone ripped open his palm as he drove it forward, piercing the man's eye. One more push drove it through the brain. The other paused in shock, and Mamoru had already ended his life. He heard a gasp from Kat. She was staring at him in slight shock, but couldn't continue as she defended herself against a flurry of slashes. Mamoru nodded to him as he jumped off, going to assist Yugo. He knew there would be questions later. A thud let him know he had company. He twisted as a white blur moved past his face, and gasped as his vision settled on his assailant. Stark white hair stood out amongst the dull backdrop of Kiri. A single sword of bone rested in her hands. Her clothes were a mess and she seemed starved. Madness shone brightly in her eyes. They shook with such intensity and focus as she studied the sword he held in his own hands. Her eyes finally moved to his, and a savage smile broke out over her face. "Ma." She whispered the word, half of it getting lost in the sounds of battle. "What?" Naruto whispered, still in shock over seeing her. Her eyes flickered over to where he had killed the man attacking Mamoru, nothing but a pile of ash. "Mate," she screeched as she lunged toward him, his shock not having worn off. He was unable to move as he was pinned underneath her, fingers clawing at his pants and shirt, desperate to get through the material. She was moaning incoherently as his shock seemed to leave him, almost breathless. "Mate, mate." She seemed absolutely thrilled, heedless of his thrashing. He was desperate now, throwing her arms away from himself, only to be pinned once more to the ground. Despite her appearance, she was terribly strong. He struck out as hard as he could, bringing his fist up into her diaphragm. She gasped, face twisting in a snarl as she brought her head down and viciously headbutted him, shattering his mask. Stars danced in his vision as she once more pinned him, tearing his shirt. She bit down on his neck, drinking his blood, grinding into him and moaning, the previous battle all but forgotten to her. He struggled further, not wanting to be defiled like this. She didn't appreciate his struggles, and threw a vicious fist across his chin, and his world exploded and the entire spectrum of sound shifted. A deafening shriek sounded in his ears. Her strength was no joke. His protests became weak as she shifted on top of him, delighted that he seemed to be cooperating, and a shadow filled the corner of his eye. His world was still shifting as he floated in and out of consciousness, barely aware of the weight shifting atop him as his mind clouded and vision swam. Thoughts swirled in his mind as the darkness encroaching his vision finally took over. Warm arms suddenly wrapped around him from behind, snapping his eyes open from the unexpected contact. He found himself no longer in the clearing, having seemingly appeared in a white and endless void. He wondered for a second if he died. Perhaps the blow to the head had been far stronger than he'd thought. "It's wonderful to finally meet you, my precious son." The voice tore him from his thoughts as he whipped around, trying to draw out a kunai, and then his very world ground to a halt. "Who are you?" Considering the situation, he found himself amazed that there was no hitch in his voice, no waver to his words, for the woman sitting in front of him was undoubtedly related to him. From her cascading snow-white hair, the smooth and aristocratic contours of her face, the thin line situated on her forehead and the calm and level expression she kept, the similarities were uncanny. She smiled softly at his question, a smile he realized was one reserved for those who held only the most special place in one's heart. "You know who I am, my precious one." Her voice seemed to be gifted unto her by the gods themselves. It spoke only of benevolence and an unending kindness as she gazed at him. He found his knees weak as he dropped his guard, a part of his mind screaming at him not to do so, the other part far too enraptured to care. "Mom?" The whisper that escaped his mouth was spoken so softly that one could have mistaken it for a breeze, but her smile widened as he gazed at her, not truly comprehending the situation. She held her hand out to him. Long and finely filed nails that spoke of nobility were the first thing he noticed as he laid his hand in her own. "I have missed you." He found himself once more in her arms as she pulled him towards herself, wrapping him in a hug. His body froze at the contact, even as warmth flooded through his body. So this is the love of a mother, his thoughts whirled, but this was the most prevalent, even overriding the thoughts of just where they were. He lay within her arms for an amount of time that felt far too little to him as she shifted her body, not letting go but now within his line of sight, all the while the smile had not left her face. How? Now that the tender moment was over, he asked the question his mind couldn't find an answer to. Her smile never wavered as she gazed at him with seemingly sightless eyes, a fact that he took note of before filing it away for later. There were more pressing matters after all. "All will be explained soon, my precious." Her voice truly was beautiful. It wouldn't be a far stretch to compare it to the hymn of the angels themselves. Coupled with her unearthly beauty, she could probably bring most men to their knees with but a glance. The horns adorning her head only seemed to add to this appeal, rather than hinder it. She stroked a hand through his hair, seemingly very pleased by its length and condition, which he realized he had inherited from her, Even after weeks of abuse it had retained its almost silk-like texture. He had never cared much for it, but was suddenly very happy it pleased this woman so. She withdrew her hand, placing it above his heart. "You have grown since I last saw you." Her words drove a wedge between the feeling of fulfillment and the reality around him. "I don't understand." He shook his head to clear the thoughts running rampant within his mind. "When I gifted you with the body of a warrior, my precious. Do you not recall?" Her voice was slightly disappointed as she gazed at him, but smiled as he shook his head. "I remember." His gaze swept out across the barren landscape. "But I don't understand where we are, or even how this is possible." His voice was laced with confusion. Before he turned his face to her, "Did I die?" She seemed shocked at his words, but after a moment her eyes softened. "No, my precious, you are still very much alive." "Then how?" His hands had gripped his hair as he finally lost his composure, considering the possibility of insanity. It brought a sigh to her lips as she regarded him with a tender and understanding gaze. "You are well within the right frame of mind, my precious one. But unfortunately I just do not have the time to explain the complexities of our situation. Right now you are overwhelmed as is. It wouldn't do to simply add to that now, would it?" She explained in a soft and tender voice, running her thumb across his cheek. He pulled away suddenly, making her look at him in shock. "No," his voice was slightly more forceful, surprising them both. "I need to understand," he finished far more softly than when he had begun, and was surprised to see a smile once more blossom on her face. "Very well," she conceded. "It brings me happiness that my precious one is eager to understand, for that is what the world lacks the most, so much so that they cannot even understand what is best for them." Her eyes had turned slightly cold to accompany her words, a stark contrast to what he had seen so far, but they once more softened at his inquisitive face. "The realm we currently occupy," she made a wide sweeping motion with her arm, "is what you might consider the soul, or rather the consciousness itself." She ran a tender hand through his hair once more before continuing, "I have come here to both enlighten your mind and strengthen your body." He stared at her in confusion. He simply couldn't comprehend how something like this was possible. She caught onto this as she smiled at him. "While in most cases this would be impossible, a being as powerful as myself is able to bend reality to suit their needs. However, even with all my strength I cannot stay for long. Reality is fickle and will eventually reject me. What you see before you is my own soul. I have come from the pure world to speak with you." "The pure world?" he asked in confusion. "It is a place where all souls go to be cleansed, before being reincarnated or sent to paradise." He nodded slowly at her words, running possibilities through his mind. "Then how are you able to speak to me? Are you in this so-called paradise?" She shook her head slightly at his words. "No, my precious one. A soul with unfinished business may not move into either until they are satisfied." He nodded again, coming to terms with this. "So I'm your unfinished business?" She nodded with a smile. "In part, yes. You are the center of which this unfinished business revolves." He realized quickly that her words were extremely vague, and decided to point it out. "The center? So there's more to it than just me?" She sighed softly at his words. "I cannot tell you much now. My time here is already running low." He started at her words, only now noticing her fading body, seemingly becoming translucent. "Wait. I have so many questions, so many things I don't understand." He had never raised his voice in desperation before, but he found he could do nothing less in this situation. "My precious one, I have no more time left." She moved forward slowly, placing the lightest of kisses on his forehead as her hand moved under his shirt. He was about to question her before she twisted and a blinding pain erupted from his stomach, making him stage her back. What?" he rasped between clenched teeth. She wrapped her arms around him once more. "I am simply giving you back what should have been yours since birth, something the foolish mortal decided to seal." He wanted to question her words, but something else came to mind. "But outside, I was being." She placed a finger on his lips. "Now no more than an upper body, my precious. What do you do with a wild animal?" The question seemed rhetorical as she continued, "You tame it." With those words she disappeared, taking the warmth with her. Yugao. She was still rushing towards her downed comrade when his eyes suddenly snapped open. Confusion evident but the determination even more so. His eyes gazed up coolly at the girl on top of him. She was just about to lunge forward when it happened. Every single person stopped their fight to stare in shock as a veritable wave of chakra washed over the clearing emanating from the downed boy. Yugo's blade a few inches away from the girl's neck. In a stunning display of pure power, the chakra suddenly lurched, launching the girl straight into the air. A sickening crack sounded through the air as she hit a low-hanging branch, blasting through it before her flight arced and she hit the ground with a thud. The child had stood while everyone's gaze followed the girl through the air, the ground cracking around his feet as the silver energy surrounded him, wrapping around his body. Long wisps of chakra emerged from his body, shining like the full moon in the night sky. He took an unsteady step forward. The ground cratered at his feet before his head shot up and everyone took a step back. The wisps suddenly shot out like a whip, striking the last 4 enemies Koga was attempting to deal with. Mamoru was laid out on the floor, bleeding but still alive. The whips of pure chakra tore straight into their flesh, all of them blinking in shock. That's when the screaming started. The 3 men and single woman howled in absolute agony. The reason becoming clear as seconds later the flesh around where they had been pierced began to turn a dark shade of black, as if the chakra was eating away at their skin, a very accurate approximation. It didn't last very long however. When blood started to run out from their eyes and ears the screaming stopped, and the tendrils disappeared. The boy took another staggered step forward, finally regaining his bearings as he trudged over to Mamoru, the man staring in shock, but not fear, as he laid his palm against his chest right where the heart was. A warm golden glow began to emanate from his palm with the man visibly relaxing at his touch, the visible wounds disappearing in seconds. A groan caught the attention of all those still alive, but none more so than the white-haired boy, who stood on sure feet, seemingly recovered from whatever shock had caused him to stumble earlier as he made his way over to the girl, who snarled at him when he reached her. With a visible flex of his hands his chakra thickened and cracked the ground, making the girl whimper before lowering her head in deference. Seemingly satisfied, he turned, the girl scrambling to her feet before coming to stand beside him, head lowered and posture slumped. They all stood like that for a while, nearly unblinking as they processed what had happened. Well, I'll be damned, Koga, in his typical fashion, broke the silence. 5 minutes later, the trip back to base was done in silence. Looks were passed between all those present. Respect and awe was the most prevalent among them. They had never seen such a phenomenon after all. It wasn't all that surprising that their captain stood at the entrance on their arrival, concealed eyes flicking to Naruto's unmasked face and the girl beside him. "Report," he ordered softly. Naruto stood silent as his team broke down the happenings of the past hour. He wasn't included for obvious reasons, the main one being that his mind seemed too far away. His teammates passed it off as shock after what happened. Itachi knew better but wouldn't pry as long as he felt it wouldn't be harmful to the mission, and only Naruto truly knew just what turmoil his emotions were in right now. The next day he stood in the shower, eyes roaming his body as he allowed his chakra to circulate his coils, the seal upon his stomach visible as he stared downwards. It was notably different. The once solid black design had opened in the middle, seemingly making a small hole within the spiral. This was his proof, the only physical evidence that what had happened the day before was not just his imagination. He slowly turned the water the seals lining the pipe stopped glowing, no longer needing to warm the water. It was a small concession granted to them and one they could all appreciate. A hot shower after a tough battle was much appreciated. No one needed to worry about using too much either. The pipes were fed directly into a nearby lake, and the heat seals only required a slight application of chakra to activate. The door clicked open as someone made their way inside. He was quite surprised to find Yugo standing there. Tears stained her cheeks as she glanced up, seemingly noticing him for the first time. She turned and bolted, a stuttered apology leaving her lips. Mildy embarrassed, but also realizing that Yugo must be in serious emotional turmoil right now, he got dressed as fast as possible and went after her. Barracks. He found her curled up in the corner of their room. The tears had stopped but the air of despondence remained. He walked up slowly, sitting down at a comfortable distance, careful not to move too close. Every shinobi had a comfort zone, and he hadn't known her long enough to know what that was. They sat for a while in silence. Naruto had considerable experience consoling Mito. He knew if she was going to talk, she would never do so with him trying to force it. It was around 5 minutes later that she spoke. "He's dead." Her voice was soft, she didn't move her eyes from the ground. He stayed silent, and sure enough she turned her head to look at him. "Hayate, Heichi went into the field a few months before I did. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He put his name forward in a meeting with the Hokage. She choked a bit on her words, but otherwise seemed to be getting her message across. There was silence for a few seconds. You loved him? Even though it was a question, both knew it to be more of a statement. Yugo blinked back at Tear as she nodded. I think I was starting to. She was forcing out the words through gritted teeth. I don't understand your pain, since it's just been me and Mito since the beginning. But just thinking of losing my sister hurts. I can't imagine what you're going through. He was never one for this though. Basic physiologically was taught to all ANBU. Mostly to help people who have fallen into shock or to help them move on from a lost loved one. Just like this. He couldn't have Yugo like this. She would be ineffective out on the field, potentially killing him and the team. No, he had to sort this out. Even if his words about Mito were true. She nodded to him, seemingly feeling slightly better at his comforting words. Humans were simple like that, in need of contact, reassurance and love. Although there were the exceptions. I'm sorry for your loss. He nodded slowly at her, before rising to his feet. We have a briefing in 10 minutes, will you make it? He wasn't looking when he asked, but she had the smallest of smiles on her face as she looked at his back. Yeah. She sniffed slightly, I'll be okay. He nodded once before walking out the room, hopeful that his talk had at least made her reliable out in the field. She stared after him, grateful for his words. I won't ask you again, girl. The sound of an echoing slap followed these words, but beyond that, there was only silence. The masked man growled, as he stared down at his current ward, a lithe and enunciated white-haired girl. She stared back, her countenance one of boredom, eyes glazed over, to the point he wondered if she realized she was not alone in the room. Shackles bound her wrists, inscribed upon the iron restraints were faintly glowing seals, designed to paralyze and negate the flow of chakra. He sighed at this point, almost pleasantly, whatever then, it's not my problem from here on out anyway. He signaled to someone cloaked in the shadows, a form nearly indistinguishable from the rest of the room. The darkness shifted, and from it emerged a woman, one with long blonde hair, tied in a messy bun, but any other features she had were hidden by the black garb and white mask that was worn. It's your turn now. The captain was very specific about exactly how much harm could come to her. No more than a few bruises was what he told me, and that's very obviously not working. He scoffed when he was waved off by the woman, and froze thereafter as a voice, plain as a blank sheet of paper, resounded off the walls of the room. That will be quite enough, Mouse. He stood by the door, form bathed in a strange mixture of darkness and light, his existence seemingly at odds with the natural order of the world, and the man shivered, disturbed on an instinctual level merely by the presence of this person. Of course, Captain. He snapped a sharp salute and made for the exit, but his eyes found another, smaller form, hidden in the shadows of the room, right next to the captain, and his flesh stood on end. For there was a certain wrongness to this form's bearing, something otherworldly and vile. His senses were going mad merely being in the presence of these monsters. His foot passed the threshold and the door slammed shut behind him. Freaks, the both of them. He shook his head of those thoughts and moved away, trying to ease his turbulent emotions. At ease, dear? The agent relaxed at his tone, but did not move from her spot. She had not been ordered to, after all. Now then, the captain spoke, I would like some answers, and you will be giving them to me. Deer stiffened at the words, as even though they had not been intended for her, the quiet promise that lay beneath his words was easy to understand. It was not merely a statement either, more along the lines of an assurance, that no matter what may happen, there would be answers. But the girl was ignoring him, her once distant and glazed eyes had locked onto the smallest form within the room. One could practically feel the excitement vibrate within her. Only him, her eyes had shifted, boring into the holes cut within the porcelain of the captain's mask. I'll only talk to him. The captain had cocked his head at her words, and Deer was sure that at any moment the girl would be screaming, spilling her guts after being trapped in some horrifying illusion. But, to her utter astonishment, he nodded once, turned, and motioned her to follow, the great iron door closing with a final creak of steel behind them, and she could only wonder, just what had possessed the captain to leave the rookie alone with a high-profile captive. She stared upon him like a predator eyeing its next meal. It was unnerving in a way, the single-minded tenacity she gazed upon him with, as if he was the only thing that existed within the world at that moment. He was broken from his thoughts as the girl uttered a single word, although he did not know what she wanted. Take your mask off. Her words were louder, more aggressive, and yet he could also sense the desperation boiling beneath the surface. Perfect. I might, he uttered, wistfully, but first, I'm going to need you to answer a few questions that I have for you. Her face twisted into a scowl, but she held her tongue. What questions? She asked, looking almost pained to do so, and he smiled behind the smooth white of his mask. Firstly, he began, is where your allegiance in this war lays, and just what you were doing with a party of loyal Kiri Nin. Her face had split into a horrifying grin at his words. A hacking laugh racked her body, sounding more like a cough than anything else. Loyalty? This time, she actually did cough, violently. I owe my loyalty to no one. I was following them to have some fun, you know, the good old hack and slash kind of thing. She was smiling broadly, but her face suddenly fell, her posture going slack as she looked away, pink dusting her cheeks. But, if I was loyal to anyone, it would be you. He was on guard the moment her personality took such a drastic shift, but from what he could see, she had nothing planned, and in fact, did not even seem to be trying to escape. He did not relax, pondering her words, and contemplating her vexing actions. Very well, he allowed. Where did you come from? And how did you escape the purge of the Kaguya? She smiled at him once more, the picture of innocence. Mama hid me in the forest when they came. She told me not to move, but something hit me in the back of the neck, and when I woke up, I couldn't find Mama anywhere, and the clan house had been burned down. There were tears in her eyes. She stared into his very soul with her coal-like irises, but once more, something shifted. So ever since, I've been wandering around, looking for things to kill. Her eyes were once more hard, bearing violent. He nearly reeled from such a sudden change. So, any other questions? He stared at her for a long, drawn-out moment. Just one. Would you be willing to become an asset to the great village of Konoha? The silence that followed his question stretched on for what may have been an eternity, her expression one of shock. And once more, something changed. Her face softened, her head drooped and her eyes gray-wide, as she stared upon him with hope etched upon her face. Really? She whispered, tears gathering in the corners of her eyes. You can really take me away from here? He nodded once and she lurched forward, but came to the realization that she would not be able to reach for him. So she settled for the most heartfelt smile she had to offer. Thank you, she whispered, softly, reverently. But her face hardened, and she spat at his feet. Don't take me for some sort of fool. There's no way I could get out of this place. You're just trying to bring my hopes up, aren't you? She drew in a deep breath, attempting to stifle her rage. Do you get off on that sort of thing? That's got to be it. Get a girl's hopes up so that when you drive the knife through her stomach it's all the more satisfying, you bastard. He regarded her silently for a few moments, his form still in the wavering light of the single torch upon the wall. Slowly, he reached for his cloak, shifting it over his shoulder so that it rested upon the middle of his bicep, before a bone grew, slow and steady as the seasons. It grew from his shoulder, its shape slowly becoming that of a katana, a testament to his skill in the bloodline he wielded. I would not be so quick to judge, he said, in an even and monotone voice. The Hokage has already cleared your transfer to the village. So long as you prove to be none hostile and ready to cooperate, as you can see, I possess the same blood limit as you. When this becomes known, the villages will throw a fit and accuse Konoha of bloodline theft. One person more will not affect the outcome of our situation. His voice was a slow drawl, meant to belittle and anger the one spoken to. He expected her to express load, whereupon he would play his full hand, and if all went well, agree to join the village. But there was no need. As she stared at him, moments passed, perhaps minutes. Finally, she looked him in the eyes, tearing her gaze from the bone protruding from his shoulder. If you're lying to me, I'll make sure to haunt you from the afterlife. And be assured, I'll rend my penance from your flesh when you arrive at the gates. He smirked. It was so much easier than he had thought it would be. He had left, without removing his mask or giving her anything she had originally wanted. He supposed that she had ended up forgetting anyway. He had left her in such a state of disrepair and emotional turbulence as it was. If it ever became important, then he would grant her request. An almost inaudible thud sounded out next to him, and he almost sighed. Yugo had become nearly insufferable as of late, always hounding him for a conversation and comfort. He put a smile upon his voice as he addressed her. Kat-san, how surprising it is to see you so early in the morning. Shouldn't you still be asleep in the barracks with the others? A sigh sounded out from behind her mask. Naruto-kun, how many times do I have to tell you to call me by my name before you get it? Her voice, while professional and monotone, carried a certain weight of annoyance and playfulness that he simply could not wrap his mid around. The past 3 days had been annoying to say the least, but, he had to admit, he was starting to enjoy the back and forth banter that had recently become a norm between them. She was interesting, and ambitious, to say the least. One does not simply dream of becoming the world's most foremost mistress. I might remember the next time we speak, Kat-san. His plans were running smoothly, agents in place and an entire clan waiting upon his whims. He sank back into his chair, satisfaction pouring out into the atmosphere, emanating from his very soul. He was so very close, his dreams, his ambitions. Soon they would all come to fruition. Years of manipulations and planning were finally coming to a head. He leaned back further upon his throne, a throne that would be traded in soon, for a more grandiose one, a more ruthless one. It will be for the best, Hiruzen. Your time is at an end, and I shall be the one to usher in the true age of shinobi, and you will be remembered as nothing more than a vile mockery of what a shinobi is, and what they are bred for. Your time has come. A slow, haunting laughter emerged from his aged lips, a promise of pain, a promise of change. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.